Warrior Lore. Chapter 2891. Inside the Egg of Light, Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing opened their eyes at the same time. Their gazes shot out as if they were solid, surging with a ferocious force that instantly struck the Egg of Light outside their bodies. Boom! The light egg exploded into pieces. Two shadows flew out of it and soared into the sky. Waves of dazzling light emitted from Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing, making them look like two massive suns hanging in the sky, dazzling and dazzling. Phew! This place is really magical. The benefits we got this time are unimaginable. Du Xiaoyao lowered her eyes, feeling the changes in her body as she sighed. She and little Xingxing had been trapped inside the light egg for hundreds of years. The endless chaos energy had shrouded them and nurtured their bodies and primordial spirits unceasingly. When they got out, their cultivation bases had rocketed. Du Xiaoyao had entered third sky of a mortal realm and little Xingxing had reached fourth sky of a mortal realm directly. This kind of advancement was really shocking. It was a big leap for them. If they had cultivated step by step in the outside world, it would have taken them many years to reach this level. However, it wasn't the most important thing. Unknowingly, they had been nurtured by the chaos energy. The hidden energy in their bodies would become the solid foundation for them to become the peerless experts in the future. Little Xingxing didn't say anything. She gently swung her delicate hand. A dazzling light flashed. Clang! A long sword flew out and hovered in the air. Waves of sword cries erupted, causing the entire space to tremble. Waves of chaotic light flowed down from the sword, silently corroding everything. Chaos sword essence. Du Xiaoyao's eyelids twitched when she saw this. She was petrified. She couldn't help but take several steps backward. She was frightened by the power of the long sword. Although they were standing here, they could feel that this sword wasn't ordinary. The terrifying energy it released had suppressed the entire space. Although Du Xiaoyao was at third sky of a mortal realm, she couldn't resist it. Fortunately, little Xingxing had clearly controlled the might of the sword. Moreover, there was something special about this space. Otherwise, just the ripples of power from the sword would have been enough to cause a boundless storm. The sword that Brother Jingyan gave me is really good stuff. Little Xingxing's beautiful eyes revealed a strange brilliance with a strong sense of excitement. It was the sword that Lu Jingyun had given him as a gift in the Inxiong everlasting heaven. Little Xingxing hadn't expected the sword to absorb a large amount of chaotic force during the hundreds of years it had been enveloped by the chaotic egg of light and had undergone a transformation. The chaos sword essence was an existence that could grow into a chaos doctrine weapon. Besides the primeval treasures that the gods and demons who had created the world had, the chaos doctrine weapons were the strongest existences. Every chaos Dao artifact contained the power of chaos. When it came down, even a macro world would be greatly affected. The power of the great Dao would be affected, and the order of the laws would be disrupted. It could really suppress a world. In the 33 heavens, even if all the big forces joined hands, they wouldn't be able to find several chaos doctrine weapons. Good boy. The chaos sword essence has finished its transformation. With this sword, I'm invincible in the immortal realm, right? Du Xiaoyao was speechless. She couldn't help but lick her lips and drool. With a chaos doctrine weapon, it was easy for an ordinary expert at the initial level of a mortal realm to fight against an expert at 8th or 9th sky of a mortal realm. This kind of treasure was too nature-defying. It could make up for the huge gap in cultivation base. Thus, Du Xiaoyao was envious. She was burning. I can feel that it hasn't reached the level of a chaos doctrine weapon. Strictly speaking, it should be a half-step chaos doctrine weapon. It's still far from the final level. Little Xingxing said. The chaos sword essence that Lu Jingyun had given her didn't have an owner. With his help, little Xingxing had refined it and controlled it completely. Little Xingxing could clearly sense the sword's condition. A half-step chaos doctrine weapon? Du Xiaoyao's eyes sparkled. She wasn't disappointed. A half-step chaos doctrine weapon was very intimidating. Although its power couldn't be compared to a real chaos doctrine weapon, it was still intimidating. In the hands of little Xingxing, an expert at the fourth sky of a mortal realm who had mastered 3 primitive laws of heaven and earth, it would be a piece of cake for her to fight against a high-level immortal realm expert. Ha ha! Du Xiaoyao suddenly started laughing, and her eyes stared fixedly at little Xingxing as she said, Little Xingxing, my niece, hee hee. Why don't you lend me this half-step Chaos Dao artifact to play with for a few days? I can help you nurture it, and it might suddenly become a true Chaos Dao artifact one day. As he spoke, he rubbed his hands together and walked to little Xingxing's side with a bashful smile on his face. Get lost. Little Xingxing glanced at him and only said this one word. Then, she didn't care about Du Xiaoyao anymore. She put away the long sword in the air and started to observe the space again. Dad hasn't come out yet. I wonder how he is now. Little Xingxing's beautiful eyes moved, looking worried. She wanted to find Du Xiaofu's trace. However, she was disappointed because she couldn't sense anything related to Du Xiaofu this time. Boss should be fine. I can sense his presence. Hearing little Xingxing's words, Du Xiaoyao stopped smiling and said, We don't need to rush. Let's find a way to leave this place first. Or, we can continue to explore. Perhaps we can find more opportunities. That would be better. This was a strange place. It was the most hidden place in the entire Shenwu world. Back then, it was the place where the demon ancestor's physical body was sealed. Du Xiaoyao felt that since they were here, they had to explore as much as they could. If they missed out on any great benefits, they would suffer a great loss. Little Xingxing didn't answer. She only nodded. Then, the two of them didn't waste any more time and started a new round of exploration. In another place in this area, Du Xiaofu was still in that mysterious state. His eyes were closed and his entire body was swirling with chaotic light. Inside his body, the power of the primal chaos origin was constantly being refined. However, even after several hundred years, the primal chaos origin still hadn't shrunk by much. One could imagine how terrifying the energy Du Xiaofu would gain if he refined all of it. This state continued. Du Xiaofu, who was in this state, had no concept of time. Before he knew it, another 300 years had passed. He didn't even realize it. Including the 200 years before that, it had been 500 years since Du Xiaofu entered this place. And it was also during this year that Du Xiaofu's body finally underwent a new change. Waves and waves of the origin of laws were like flowing water. They materialized and flowed out of his body. Large amounts of objects were forming around Du Xiaofu. They evolved into thousands of things that looked no different from the real world. At the same time, the origin of laws was emitting waves of violent Taoist rhymes. They intertwined into a terrifying amount of energy that caused the entire space to shake violently. This Taoist rhyme was extraordinary. Compared to the Taoist rhyme that Du Xiaofu produced before, this Taoist rhyme was many times thicker. As the Taoist rhyme flowed, there seemed to be an even more terrifying force vibrating. It was no different than the Taoist rhyme used when a powerhouse of meditative oblivion attacked. This was the power of the Taoist rhyme. Although it couldn't be compared to the first realm of meditative oblivion, it was still intimidating enough. If he could use this kind of power to fight, Du Xiaofu could absolutely resist the peak of ninth sky of Immortal Realm. He could even kill them. Boom, boom. Not long after these scenes appeared, the entire void space began to shake violently. The loud sound was like waves of thunder, rolling and rumbling. The terrifying lightning was like a giant dragon, tearing apart the void. All of a sudden, the void began to collapse on a large scale. It was as if a magnificent city wall was falling down. The momentum was terrifying. Swoosh! Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. Deep inside his pupils, the sun and moon were moving up and down. Heaven and earth were rotating. Time was surging and life was being born. Numerous strange scenes played out successively, causing it to seem like a god that had created the heavens and the earth, and it was mighty and mysterious. Only by reaching this level, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. The void was like falling bricks, sweeping past Du Xiaofu. He sighed inwardly. After sensing carefully, he found that more than half of the primal chaos origin that Heavenly Master Absolute had given him hadn't been refined. It was still dormant. However, Du Xiaofu could clearly feel that he had undergone a terrifying transformation. Is this the power of the Taoist rhyme? He muttered softly and extended a finger. A hazy light rippled from the tip of his finger. The light was like a bean, but it contained the vigorous power of the Taoist rhyme. As the Taoist rhyme circulated, it produced an even more terrifying power. Du Xiaofu had seen some meditative oblivion powerhouses attack. He could feel the charm of the Taoist rhyme. The power he was releasing now contained the aura of the Taoist rhyme. He was incomparably happy. This breakthrough had allowed him to reach the second level of the realm of void Dao that senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had told him about, condensing law and tracing Dao. Literally, condensing law and tracing Dao was to condense the complete power of the Taoist rhyme and trace Dao. Du Xiaofu had grasped all the four great primitive laws. Since he was in the realm of void Dao, it was easier for him to reach this level compared to others. If it were an ordinary expert at the peak of ninth sky of a mortal realm, even if he had grasped the complete power of the Taoist rhyme and trace Dao, he would have to put in a lot of effort to break through the meditative oblivion and condense the Taoist rhyme and trace Dao. Moreover, the chance of success was very small. It was also because of this that since ancient times, the 33 heavens had produced countless outstanding individuals. However, even after countless years of accumulation, only a few hundred meditative forgetfulness powerhouses had been born. It was undeniable that the meditative oblivion realm was a big trap. It had stopped many talented experts from advancing. If there's a chance, I should find someone to test my real strength. Du Xiaofu was looking forward to it. He wanted to rush to the 33 heavens and find some high-level immortal realm experts to battle. He wanted to measure his harvest this time. With this kind of capital, he felt that he didn't need to be afraid of any immortal realm experts. The only ones who could threaten him were the meditative oblivion experts. Senior Heavenly Master Absolute has passed away. All of a sudden, Du Xiaofu felt a little sad. He looked at the collapsing void and couldn't see the domineering figure from before. The illusion left by Heavenly Master Absolute had vanished. It didn't exist anymore. Heavenly Master Absolute had been affected by demon ancestor Rahu during the creation of the world. His vitality had been greatly damaged. In the end, to preserve the life of the divine martial world, he had scattered his chaos origin to nourish this world. Because of that, the divine martial world had been preserved. It was the grand occasion it had today. There should be no more secrets here. 500 years have passed in the blink of an eye. It's time to go back. I hope that the divine martial world can recover to the level of the absolute heavens. Du Xiaofu suppressed the sadness in his heart and thought. In order to find the greatest secret of this world, he had left the desolate country for 500 years. His family must be worried about him. With such a great harvest, Du Xiaofu decided to return as soon as possible. After that, he should go to the 33 heavens to take a look. He didn't know how the demon race was doing in the outside world. Other than that, as his cultivation continued to break through, the divine martial world could continue to grow and recover to its embryonic state from the ancient times. As for whether it could continue to grow and become a great world, Du Xiaofu didn't have absolute confidence. That kind of result would require him to break through to an even more terrifying level. Little Yao, little Xingxing is still waiting here? Suddenly, Du Xiaofu looked around and saw Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing's figures. Amidst the fragments of space that filled the sky, the two of them were moving around in all directions, as if they were searching for something. Not long after that, they also found Du Xiaofu. They immediately dashed toward him. Boss! Dad! Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing cheered, hurrying to Du Xiaofu. Seems like your harvest isn't small. You've both broken through terrifyingly. Du Xiaofu's lips curled into a smile as he looked at the two people in front of him. After several hundred years, little Xingxing looked a little older. When he saw her in the Inxiong Wu Kuei sky, she gave people a feeling of immaturity. But now, she had a mature charm. She could be considered a big girl now. What made Du Xiaofu happy the most was that Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing's competence had increased tremendously. They had reached 4th sky of a mortal realm and 5th sky of a mortal realm, respectively. Previously, we had a fortuitous encounter. In the next 300 years, we improved and broke through again, Du Xiaoyao said with a smile. After they came out of the chaotic light egg, they hadn't been looking for Du Xiaofu all the time. Through continuous cultivation, the two of them had broken through quickly. Du Xiaofu naturally knew about the fortuitous encounter they had. Heavenly Master Daluo had already told him about it. Boss, what's your strength now? I find that I can't see through you anymore. Du Xiaoyao winked at Du Xiaofu and smacked his lips. Du Xiaofu gave him the feeling that he was a bottomless pool. He couldn't see the bottom, vast and deep. He knew that his talent and fortuitous encounter weren't much worse than Du Xiaofu's. However, as his cultivation base increased, the gap between the two of them widened. This was a blow to Du Xiaoyao. Hee, Uncle Little Monster. It looks like you can forget about winning back the boss's position in this lifetime. Little Xingxing chuckled as if he was taking pleasure in Du Xiaoyao's misfortune. It's fine if I don't want to. I've had a good life in this life. I don't want to have a next life. Du Xiaoyao spread his hands and shrugged. When he said this, he seemed a little cowardly. He didn't look like he was in the early years when he was completely convinced by Du Xiaofu. He was also sure that after so many years, he had suffered enough blows. Du Xiaoyao had long become numb and used to it. Dad, you disappeared for so long. Have you found the secret of this place? Little Xingxing turned his head and looked at Du Xiaofu. Upon hearing that, Du Xiaoyao also looked at him. His ears immediately perked up, wanting to hear what Du Xiaofu had to say. This space is about to collapse. It's not a place to talk. Let's talk about the details after we return. Du Xiaofu didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said this. Du Xiaoyao and Little Xingxing both nodded. Then, the three of them rushed into the sky one after another. Like fish swimming in water, they quickly shuttled through the fragments of space that filled the sky. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. Just as Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Xingxing left the original beast region, Shenwu world had already undergone a tremendous change. The scale of this world, on the basis of the previous one, had doubled again. Majestic mountains stretched across the land, giant rivers surged and roared, vast lands spread out, and waves of spirit energy formed into water droplets. All of this was a testament to the terror of the current Shenwu world. Outside the world, the space barrier had been destroyed, causing Shenwu world's aura to explode. Not long after, living beings in the 33 heavens sensed the situation here. What is that place? Why is it so terrifying? It's a brand new world. It seems to be larger than any of the major worlds in the 33 heavens. It's too terrifying. How could such a world suddenly appear in this world? I've never heard of such a place. Quick, let's go check it out. Chapter 2892. Within the 33 heavens, many creatures discovered the situation in Shenwu world and were shocked. To everyone, this was a world that had suddenly appeared, a place that was even more terrifying than the 33 heavens. This made countless people want to go in and see what was going on. Not long after, a large number of experts set out, heading straight for Shenwu world. If it wasn't for the fact that more and more demons were coming out of the 18 levels of hell, requiring countless people to deal with them, it would have attracted even more experts to investigate. But even so, the number of people heading towards Shenwu world was still enormous. Within Shenwu world, Du Xiaofu brought Little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao out of the void and discovered the even more terrifying changes in this world. But because they were mentally prepared, they weren't too shocked and only let out a series of praises. Du Xiaofu was even more so. He knew the origin of Shenwu world, and the current state of this world wasn't even close to the embryonic state of a world from the ancient era. This kind of change needs to happen a few more times in the future. Du Xiaofu sighed in his heart. He really hoped that Shenwu world could continue to prosper and bring endless benefits to the creatures of this world. Right now, this world's foundation was still too weak. Compared to the 33 heavens, it couldn't even withstand a single blow. It needed to give birth to more experts to make up for these problems. If a few meditative experts appeared in this world, perhaps it would be a bit safer. Du Xiaofu thought in his heart. If there were such existences watching over this world, they would be able to protect the growth of the other creatures of this world. That would definitely be a rare thing. But he was only thinking about it. Where could he find a meditative expert in this world? Originally, there were many factions in the 3 continents, Kyushu, and from ancient times until now, There had never been such an expert, except for the dean of Tianwu Academy. Dean, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself as he thought. The principal of Tianwu Academy was definitely an expert from the outside world. Du Xiaofu knew about this long ago. However, since he was the founder of a faction in the divine martial world, he could naturally be considered as one of the living beings here. Moreover, his cultivation had already reached the meditative oblivion realm. He had been sleeping in the desolate ancient space that Du Xiaofu carried with him for many years, and he was breaking through to the third level of the meditative oblivion realm. Gaze through reincarnation. If he could wake up, perhaps he could really become the strongest person in this world, overseeing a region. Just as Du Xiaofu was thinking about this problem, his consciousness subconsciously entered the desolate ancient space to check on the condition of Tianwu Academy's principal. With his current strength, he was no longer as blind as he was in the past. However, just as Du Xiaofu's consciousness entered the desolate ancient space, his heart suddenly jumped. The reason being that the ancient desolate space was completely empty. Apart from some cultivation resources, there was nothing else. The figure wrapped in light that had been lying in the ancient, desolate space had disappeared without a trace. The principal of Tianwu Academy had disappeared without a trace. Principal, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but be shocked. As the current owner of the ancient, desolate space, that space was just like the divine martial world. Everything was under his control. However, one of the living people had disappeared without him noticing at all. This was extremely strange. Could it be that the principal has successfully broken through and left on his own? Du Xiaofu had such a thought, and it was extremely possible. The ancient desolate space was under the control of Du Xiaofu. It was impossible for an outsider to enter and take him away without him noticing. At the same time, that space had been refined by the dean in his early years, and the order of the laws within it was also under his control. If he had left after waking up, it would not have attracted Du Xiaofu's attention at all. This could also be explained. If Du Xiaofu's deduction was correct, it could only mean one thing. The principal had successfully broken through to the third level of meditative realm, becoming the strongest existence in the 33 heavens. I wonder where the old man is right now. Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the void around him. He really wanted to see the principal, but he didn't know where to look. Boss, what's wrong? Seeing Du Xiaofu's dazed expression, Du Xiaoyao couldn't help but ask. It's nothing. Let's continue on our way. Du Xiaofu shook his head and didn't explain anything. He would explain everything to them when they returned to the desolate country. He didn't use the power of the world's laws and order. Otherwise, they would have returned to the desolate country in the blink of an eye. More experts have arrived in this world. Just as the three of them were hurrying on their way, Du Xiaofu's eyebrows twitched. He felt a strange fluctuation in the divine martial world. Quite a few powerful experts had arrived. They all fell into his perception. Could it be those beasts from the Qian Su Jing Hua Heaven again? Little Xingxing's beautiful eyes looked at Du Xiaofu and asked. The existence of the divine martial world was very secretive. It was very difficult to find this world from the cracks of the outside world. When they came back, the three meditative realm experts from the Qian Su Jing Hua Heaven followed them all the way and found this place. So, if the other experts from the Qian Su Jing Hua Heaven got the news of those three and came to the divine martial world, it was very possible. However, little Xingxing wasn't worried at all. In the divine martial world, there was no one who could be her father's match. By the side, the corners of Du Xiaoyao's mouth could not help but curl up into a sneer. No matter how many beast clan rankers came, they would only be delivering delicacies to them. It's not the beast from the Qian Su Jing Hua Heaven. There are a lot of experts here. There are a lot of people we haven't met before. At this moment, Du Xiaofu said with a frown. He faintly felt that this world seemed to have been exposed to the outside world. That was why so many experts came to spy on it. I don't care who they are. As long as they don't come with good intentions, they can all stay in this world. Little Xingxing said slowly. His words were filled with strong killing intent. Let's go back to the desolate country first. Du Xiaofu nodded. Without any delay, he took Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing and left. Soon, they returned to the desolate country. After seeing Du Xiaofu and the other two return, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaojing, Du Yunlong, Jin Xingchun, Jalobatian, and the others were all very happy. They hurried to the main hall of the imperial palace to gather. Du Xiaofu simply explained some things to them. Then he rushed to the sky above the stone city, waiting for the experts from the outside world to come to this world. In the distant 33 heavens, it could be said that no place could be calm. This was because the Devil Clan had become more and more rampant in recent years. A few hundred years ago, a small group of Devil Clan members had broken into the Fiend God battle boundary and then entered the Supreme Chong Rong Heaven. In the past few hundred years, this trend had become even greater, and even more Devil Clan members had emerged. Fortunately, in the early years, the major forces of the 33 heavens had made the corresponding preparations. They had sent a large number of experts to guard the Hell's Gate in the Fiend God battlefield. Once they discovered Devil Race people, they would directly kill them. This prevented the Devil Race people from causing trouble in the 33 heavens. As more and more Devil Race people rushed out of the 18 layers of hell, the major forces of the 33 heavens became more and more nervous. No one dared to underestimate this matter. No one dared to underestimate the Devil Race. No one hoped that a huge massacre like the ancient times would reappear in the world. At the 18 layers of hell, in the boundless star field, there was only one world with life. It was a place called Earth. The lords of the 3,000 universes, Lu Xiaoyu and Xiaolong, were still here. They continued to travel to various places, as if they were two mortals traveling through the world of mortals. Boss, the Devil Ancestors' movements are getting bigger and bigger. If we don't take action soon, there will be a mistake. If he escapes our control, it won't be a good thing. Xiaolong and Lu Xiaoyu walked side by side, frowning slightly as they spoke. The Devil Ancestor was breaking the seal of the 18 layers of hell. Step by step, he was fusing with his separated and suppressed primordial spirit. Once he finished fusing and recovered his peak strength, it would be very difficult to stop him. This was also what Xiaolong was worried about. Let's not be anxious. He still needs time. Our arrangements also need to be carried out step by step. My junior brother's cultivation has advanced a step. I'm afraid he will start to cause trouble again. We don't need to worry about the specifics. Let's just watch him torment himself. I believe that guy will definitely have his own ideas. Lu Xiaoyu waved his hand lightly and said to Xiaolong. He was still the same as before. There was an indescribable indifference, as if he always had a card up his sleeve. All right, since boss said so, we will listen to you. Xiaolong spread out his hands and said, 18 layers of hell. Only the last few layers of seals are left. The remaining power of this star field is about to be used up. The methods left behind by Great God Pango can't stop the living Devil Ancestor in the end. Lu Xiaoyu let out a sigh, then said, I hope my junior brother can cultivate faster. That way, he can face the Devil Ancestor head-on sooner, and there will be more changes. That kid's cultivation speed is already abnormal enough. It has completely exceeded our expectations. We can't be too harsh on him. Xiaolong glanced at his boss Xiaoyu. When he mentioned Du Xiaofu, he seemed to feel that the kid was very similar to his boss. Du Xiaofu had only cultivated for a little over 1,000 years. If it was someone with extraordinary talent in the 33 heavens, they would probably only be at the true Severing realm. But that guy had already reached the Void Path realm. Who knows how many geniuses he had surpassed? The secret of Shen Wu world should have already been obtained by him. That world has been completely exposed to the outside world, and can be considered to be completely connected to the 33 heavens. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly said with a smile. He had already known about Shen Wu world for a long time, and had been paying attention to it. He also knew about the recent changes. If we go there again, I'm afraid we won't be suppressed as much as before, right? Xiaolong's eyes flashed as he said. When they were chasing the Devil God, they had been to Shen Wu world. Because of the terrifying suppression, everyone's cultivation was severely limited, and they couldn't use their original strength. It was also because of this that the Devil God chose that world to hide from the disaster. In the end, it was because of the Du family's ancestor, who was the Heaven's Path, that the Devil God was suppressed. Thinking about that terrifying suppression, even a powerhouse like Xiaolong couldn't help but feel anxious. It definitely wasn't a good experience. If we want to completely remove the suppression of that world, it's still a bit off. If we go there now, we'll probably be able to use the cultivation of a meditative realm expert. In other words, those with the strength of a meditative realm expert won't be suppressed too much when they go to that world. Lu Xiaoyu said, "The divine battle world is indeed an embryonic form of a world. The creator of that world, Lord Daluo, is indeed a powerful fiend god who walked out of the chaos. Even though he changed the order of the world, he was still able to produce such a terrifying power. It really makes me feel like I'm in the dust." Xiaolong suddenly sighed and shook his head. His cultivation, whether it was in the 3,000 boundless worlds or the 33 heavens, was already strong enough. Other than his boss, it was hard to find anyone stronger than him. Even so, when he thought about the chaos devil gods of the ancient era, Xiaolong couldn't help but sigh endlessly. They were the strongest existences in the world. "Don't worry." Lu Xiaoyu smiled and looked at Xiaolong. "That height one day, we'll be able to reach it too. Chaos devil gods are very powerful, but they also lived for countless years in the chaos to reach that level. Although we're postnatal life forms, there's no rule that says postnatal life forms are necessarily weaker than chaos life forms." Xiaolong was originally listening to Lu Xiaoyu's words seriously, but when he heard the last part, his eyes fiercely jumped. "Boss, you mean?" He looked at his boss in disbelief, and his entire body froze. Xiaolong understood the last part of Lu Xiaoyu's sentence. There's no rule that says postnatal life forms are necessarily weaker than chaos life forms. In the world, there were 3 types of life forms: chaos life forms, prenatal life forms, and postnatal life forms. Gods and devils that walked out of the chaos were naturally chaos life forms. When the world was first created, the life forms that were directly born from the world were prenatal life forms, such as the ancestral dragon, Yuan Feng, and first Qilin of the 33 heavens. Postnatal life forms were the natural reproduction of life forms, the natural evolution after the order of the world stabilized. To everyone's knowledge, postnatal life forms were the weakest. Because they lacked the most advantageous conditions, it was naturally impossible for them to reach the heights of prenatal life forms. As for chaos life forms, they were able to open up a world, evolve the great Tao, create the world, and give birth to prenatal life forms. They naturally reigned above all, the strongest existences. But Lu Xiaoyu's words meant that postnatal life forms had a chance to transcend and stand shoulder to shoulder with prenatal life forms, or even reach the heights of chaos life forms. Xiaolong found this somewhat inconceivable. Such a thought could be said to go against the subordinate relationship of the great Tao. But these words came from his boss's mouth, so he had no choice but to believe them. Xiaolong had always believed that given enough time, his boss would surpass everyone and become the first postnatal life form comparable to chaos life forms. But in Xiaolong's heart, this was only limited to his boss. Everyone else, including himself, would have no hope. Let's prepare to leave. The demon ancestors' rampage in the 18 layers of hell has caused the power here to change as well. There's going to be a great disturbance in this starfield. Lu Xiaoyu didn't say much about the previous question, instead changing the subject. The life forms in this world are the ones who are truly blessed. Xiaolong's gaze swept across the world. He could clearly sense every corner of this world. He then said, "Under the protection of the great god Pangu, although everyone here is mortal, there are no bloody disputes like other worlds. It can be considered to be detached from the world. However, it would be great if the humans here could cause less trouble." As he spoke, he pursed his lips as if he wasn't particularly satisfied with some things in this world. Haha. Lu Xiaoyu smiled when he heard this and said, "This realm will undergo a transformation, and it won't take long. Let's get ready to go. It's time to meet the demon ancestor and those demons head-on." Xiaolong turned his head and looked up at the sky as he said aloud. Lu Xiaoyu nodded and said, "But before that, I'm afraid we'll have to fight with another person first." As he spoke, a bright light shot out from his eyes. Endless illusions evolved in them. One could see the sun and moon rising together, time and space rotating, the great world rising and falling, and all things vanishing. "Let's go," Xiaolong shouted softly. Then, together with Lu Xiaoyu, Their bodies slowly faded away. Suddenly, they disappeared from their original spot as if they'd never appeared. Their departure didn't cause the slightest change in the world of Earth. However, outside this realm, there was an invisible and majestic, mysterious power emanating from it. It was as if this small Earth was the center of the entire star-filled universe. Endless power surged out from it like a torrential river, connecting all the stars together and creating mysterious trajectories. Under the revolving power of the countless stars, all of them converged into the 18 layers of hell, forming a powerful seal that turned the entire hell into a prison, firmly trapping the countless demons. However, over the years, ever since Jiangchen entered the 18 layers of hell, the power provided by all the stars constantly changed, causing the power of the seal to become weaker and weaker. This caused the entire desolate starfield to change. In fact, Lu Xiaoyu and Xiaolong had always been aware of these changes. They saw everything with their own eyes. They knew that the binding power of Earth was unraveling. Chapter 2893. Du Xiaofu returned to the desolate country. Just as he had sensed, a large number of powerful cultivators from the outside world had entered Shenwu world. Fortunately, there were some familiar faces among them. For example, the powerful cultivators from the various sacred grounds and divine nations of the transcendent harmony heaven. It was because of these people's arrival that a large-scale war had not broken out and caused the powerful cultivators from the outside world to attack Shenwu world. Of course, there were also many powerful cultivators who were tempted by the terror of this world. They wanted to take over a piece of land, or even take over the territories of other forces to develop their own forces. However, under Du Xiaofu's intimidation, no one dared to act rashly. The arrival of these powerful cultivators did not cause much of a ruckus, but everyone was shocked by the extreme terror of this world. At the same time, they brought news to Shenwu world. It was about the demon race leaving the 18 levels of hell and attempting to enter the 33 skies. Things have already developed to this point? Du Xiaofu frowned when he heard the news from a powerful cultivator from the startling Star Holy Ground. When he returned to Shenwu world, he wanted to bring some powerful cultivators into the 33 skies. It would not take too much time. However, in order to find the secrets of this world, more than 500 years had passed. This was not a short period of time. It was enough time for many things to happen. The demon race would naturally act accordingly. Dad, let's return to the 33 skies. Little Ba, Little Lin, Little Huang, Little Shuang, and the others are still in Yuqing Divine Nation. Little Xingxing walked up and said to Du Xiaofu. The three of them had taken Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, and Lu Ying as their masters. There should not be any problems. However, the entrance to the Fiend God battle realm was too close to the supreme Changrong heaven. If the Fiend God race walked out from there, that realm would definitely be the first to bear the brunt of their attacks. Little Xingxing was still worried about this. Of course we have to go back. Let's prepare and leave. Du Xiaofu pondered for a moment and said. Then, he looked at Du Tingxian, Du Xiaojing, Du Yunlong, Zhen Qingchun, Jialo Jueyu, and the others and said, Shenwu world has undergone tremendous changes, and everyone's strength is still not enough. If we rashly go to the 33 heavens and fight with the demons, it will be very dangerous. Since that was the case, he might as well stay here and cultivate wholeheartedly. When I need help in the future, I will send a message back. He didn't feel at ease letting the powerhouses of Shenwu world go with him to the 33 heavens, so his previous plan had been ruined. After all, the demon race was too powerful. If they directly participated in the battle, these people would be no different from throwing their lives away. They would not be able to play a decisive role. Rather than that, it would be better to let everyone stay in this realm and use the unique conditions here to step into a higher realm as soon as possible. I'll do as you say. I reckon that if the demons want to make a large-scale move, it will take some time. Just nice. We can use this time to increase our strength a little more, and at the end, we will be able to contribute our strength. Du Tingxian nodded and said to Du Xiaofu. The powerhouses of Shenwu world had already made a plan. The current Shenwu world did not have the strength to fight against the demons. All right, then we will set out immediately. Du Xiaofu nodded. Then, He scanned his surroundings and took in the many experts who had come from the outside world. He was still a little worried. This realm was exposed to the outside world's powerhouses. If an immortal realm powerhouse or even a meditative realm powerhouse came and had any ill intentions, the people of Shenwu world would not be able to stop them. Du Xiaofu felt troubled. The safest way was for him to stay here. No matter what kind of powerhouse came, they would have to crawl. But he had to go to transcendent Changrong Sky. His senior brother Liu Xiao had said that the key to killing the demon ancestor was him. He could not drop the ball at this time. So, Du Xiaofu felt troubled. He could not ignore the safety of his friends and family, but he could not ignore the demons. He was in a dilemma. Little Yao, little Xingxing, why don't you two stay in Shenwu world? I will go to transcendent Changrong Sky alone. Du Xiaofu thought for a while and could only make this decision. Little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao's strength were extraordinary now. With them in Shenwu world, they would be of great help. This was a temporary solution. It was not perfect, but overall, it was a solution. Little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao heard this and fell silent. In their hearts, they were more willing to fight against the demons with Du Xiaofu. But the living beings of this realm needed them. If they had to choose, they would naturally choose the latter. So, the two of them pondered for a while and were about to nod in agreement. But right at this moment, a hearty laugh suddenly rang out, landing in everyone's ears. Haha, young man, go to the 33 skies. With me here, I don't think many people would dare to cause trouble here. After this laugh, a tall elder appeared from the void. He stood in midair and landed in front of Du Xiaofu and the others. This elder's figure was majestic and tall. He carried with him an aura that could lift up the sky. His eyes were as bright as the sun. His silver hair fluttered without wind. He carried with him an ancient aura. But no matter what, it could not conceal his natural aggressiveness and dominance. This elder walked up to Du Xiaofu and smiled at him as if he was looking at an old friend. However, Du Xiaofu was a little confused. He had never seen this old man before, so he didn't know who he was. Young man, why are you looking at me like that? The old man was still smiling as he teased. My appearance has made you so excited that you can't even speak? The elder's gaze was soft, as if he was looking at his own descendant. His eyes were shining with love. Du Xiaofu was even more confused now. He had never seen this elder before. He couldn't help but to bow and ask, I wonder if you... Towards this elder who appeared out of nowhere, he couldn't see through him and didn't know his cultivation level. However, since he dared to say that he was guarding Shenwu world, he naturally couldn't be very powerful. With Du Xiaofu's capabilities today, if he couldn't see through this person's cultivation level, it was enough to see how terrifying this person was. It was very likely that he was an existence of the meditative realm. A powerhouse like this had no ill intentions towards him. Du Xiaofu was more than happy to treat him with respect. Haha, seeing Du Xiaofu's actions, the elder laughed heartily. He suddenly asked, Young man, are you used to my desolate ancient space? He stroked his beard and narrowed his eyes as he stared at Du Xiaofu. Desolate ancient space. Du Xiaofu was taken aback and his entire body froze on the spot. Wasn't the owner of the desolate ancient space the principal of Tianwu Academy? He had also noticed that the figure shrouded in light had disappeared from the desolate ancient space. He had no idea where the principal had gone. Who would have thought that the principal would appear before him at this moment? This made Du Xiaofu extremely shocked. Junior Du Xiaofu pays respect to senior principal. Du Xiaofu was extremely agitated as he hurriedly bowed. It turned out that this elder was the principal of Tianwu Academy. This was a terrifying existence. Back then, his master, Yu Yuqian, had seen the dormant principal and said that the latter had broken through from the second level of meditative oblivion to the third level of samsara, gazing through reincarnation. His appearance here could only mean one thing. He was an existence at the third level of meditative oblivion. In the entire 33 heavens, there were only a handful of people who possessed the same level of cultivation as the principal. You may dispense with the formalities. Young man, you're not bad. I can be considered to be fated with you to be able to make the desolate ancient space acknowledge you as its master. The elder from Tianwu Academy waved his hands and chuckled. He looked at Du Xiaofu and nodded his head repeatedly. He seemed to be extremely satisfied with this young man. General, Ghost Child, Gu Xinyan. Du Xiaofu didn't have time to say anything to the principal. He immediately beckoned to the experts of Tianwu Academy and summoned them to his side. In an instant, Guo Xiaofeng, Tang Wu, Dongli Diao, Lin Weiqi, Wu Kei, Bai Mingfeng, Li Yuxiao, and the others gathered around Zhang Xian. Under Du Xiaofu's signal, the most outstanding disciples of Tianwu Academy, such as Teng Yimo, Zhang Yishan, Huang Xiaofeng, Yu Yu, and the others, also gathered around him and the principal. Everyone looked at Du Xiaofu in confusion, unable to comprehend his intentions. Even though everyone was in awe of this elder and could faintly sense how terrifying he was, they didn't know his identity. This is the founder of Tianwu Academy, senior principal. Without any hesitation, Du Xiaofu explained to the general, Ghost Child, Yu Xinyan, and the others. Upon hearing those words, the experts of Tianwu Academy were dumbfounded. Tianwu Academy had a long history, but since ancient times, the position of principal had always been vacant. Even now, this tradition was still abided by. Everyone knew that there was a principal in Tianwu Academy, but no one knew his exact identity. Upon hearing Du Xiaofu say that the elder was the founder of Tianwu Academy, as well as the mysterious principal, how could they not be astonished? Don't be in a daze. Hurry up and pay your respects. Du Xiaofu chided with a smile. Then, he patted the shoulders of the shocked general and said, everyone immediately recovered from their daze. How could they dare to be slow? They immediately bowed and greeted the principal respectfully. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu introduced the general, Ghost Child, Gu Xinyan, Guo Xiaofeng, Zhang Yishan, Yu Yu, and the others to the principal of Tianwu Academy. These people were the strongest in Tianwu Academy, and the strongest among them had already reached truth-severing realm. Their cultivation speed couldn't be said to be slow. Upon seeing the principal, everyone was agitated. This was truly a legendary existence. Because of him, the highest position in Tianwu Academy had always been reserved, and no one had ever taken it. Other than the current members of Tianwu Academy, the other experts of divine martial world who had cultivated in Tianwu Academy also stepped forward to pay their respects to the principal. Senior principal, you mean that you will be overseeing divine martial world? After the introductions, Du Xiaofu asked the principal. Others might not know, but he knew that the principal was a terrifying existence at the third meditative realm. With him overseeing divine martial world, he could be at ease. In the entire 33 skies, there were very few people who could pose a threat to him. That's right. I'll leave the matters outside to you youngsters. When the time comes, I'll appear. As for the rear, leave it to me. The principal nodded his head and looked at Du Xiaofu. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu finally let out a long sigh of relief and felt relieved. He secretly transmitted a message to Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Du Yunlong, General, Ghost Child, and a few others, causing them to tense up. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Third meditative realm. The content of Du Xiaofu's transmission truly revealed the level of strength of the principal of Tianwu Academy. The current divine martial world had already come into contact with many matters related to the 33 skies, and they had a rough understanding of the living beings in the outside world. They were no longer as clueless as before. Therefore, everyone knew very well what the third level of meditative forgetfulness meant. In fact, Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Du Yunlong, General, Ghost Child, and the others were all shocked. It was hard for them to imagine that the principal who founded Tianwu Academy in the small divine martial world was actually such a terrifying expert. No one could understand. Back then, the strongest living beings in divine martial world were only at the Saint Realm. How did they receive the favor of such an expert? My name is the Holy Emperor, and the people of the outside world often refer to me as the Holy Emperor. This world is doing well. There are finally great changes, and it's much stronger than before. All of you will have great prospects in the future. The principal of Tianwu Academy spoke again as he swept his gaze across the crowd. He was extremely gratified, especially when he saw the group of experts from Tianwu Academy. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. Tianwu Academy was extremely powerful in this world. It was a sacred ground in divine martial world, and countless living beings were attracted to it. It could be said that other than the desolate country, Tianwu Academy was one of the strongest forces in the world. Holy Emperor, Du Xiaofu smacked his lips. This title was extremely domineering, and it was indeed befitting of the principal's status and cultivation. Senior Holy Emperor, since that's the case, I'll leave Divine Martial World in your hands. I'll immediately head to Transcendent Harmony Heaven to take a look at the situation there. Only then can I be at ease. After another round of conversation, Du Xiaofu cupped his fists and said to the principal, who was also the Holy Emperor, without any worries, Du Xiaofu could leave with peace of mind. You guys can go. Leave this place to me. The Holy Emperor nodded and said to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu did not delay any longer. He immediately brought Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, and a few other experts from Transcendent Harmony Heaven and left Divine Martial World. After they left, many experts from the other worlds and the 33 heavens hesitated. They did not know if they should stay or leave. This world was very strange. It suddenly appeared in front of everyone, and it aroused their interest. Many people had long wanted to explore this place. After all, this place was vast and sparsely populated. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth and resources were innumerable. It was completely different from the 33 heavens where there were too many monks and too little gruel. Everyone, if you're here just to find out what's going on, or to look for some opportunities, I welcome you on behalf of the Shenwu world. However, let me give you a word of advice. If anyone dares to act recklessly in this world, don't blame me for not showing mercy. When that time comes, no matter how powerful the faction behind you is, you'll be wiped out. The Holy Great Emperor's expression suddenly darkened when he saw the expressions of the experts who came from the outside world, and he said these words. His eyes were like knives, shooting out sharp rays of light that pierced through the void. A large area of chaos appeared, causing the scalps of those who looked at it to go numb. This was a form of deterrence. The purpose was to prevent the experts from the outside world from acting recklessly and wantonly robbing the large amounts of resources in this world. Before, with Du Xiaofu's existence, no one dared to act rashly. However, now that he had left, many people began to stir. As expected of the Holy Emperor, his words are domineering. Du Tingxian, Du Yunlong, Jialo Jueyu, Chang Guyu, and the others were all amazed by the Sky Marshal Dean's domineering words. At this moment, they all knew that the Dean was a terrifying expert. To be able to say such words, he naturally had the confidence to do so. In reality, what they did not know was that the faction behind the Dean was much more terrifying than they had imagined. Of course, many people from the 33 heavens did not know about this. Someone frowned when he heard the Holy Emperor's words. Senior, you may be very strong, but to dare say such words, you're looking down on the beings of the 33 heavens too much. This was an expert from the beast race. He had a single horn on his head, and his entire body was invisibly flowing with powerful origin energy. At a glance, one could tell that he was a terrifying expert. As he spoke, he looked at the people around him. He thought that at this moment, many people would unite with him. If they really wanted to fight, they would definitely fight against the old man together. Seventh Sky of Immortal Realm. The Holy Emperor glanced at the one-horned expert indifferently. He did not even look at him. It seems that you are not convinced. That's fine. I'm a person who is afraid of trouble. I don't like to have enemies staring at me from behind, whether they are powerful experts or ants. If anyone dares to be my enemy, I'll kill them directly. So, you can go to hell now. As soon as he finished speaking, the void around the one-horned expert suddenly distorted. A terrifying energy wantonly rushed out like a raging tide and swallowed the one-horned expert's body. Chapter 2894. The terrifying energy that came out of nowhere surged like a tidal wave hitting the sky. However, it was well controlled within a small area. This situation happened suddenly and disappeared abruptly. In just a blink of an eye, it disappeared. The expert from the Unicorn clan vanished along with it, and his body transformed into a wisp of green smoke that dissipated into the surroundings. This scene sent chills down people's spines. A high-level Immortal Realm expert, didn't even have time to react before his soul and body perished just like that? A meditative forgetting expert, the other high-level immortal realm experts, couldn't help but take a few steps back. Their faces were filled with fear. It wasn't difficult for them to sense that the quintessence energy of the Grand Tao was shooting out from within the tide from before, and it instantly disintegrated the unicorn's body and soul core, causing it to instantly perish and transform into a strand of green smoke. Of course, only a meditative forgetting expert could do such a terrifying thing. Many powerhouses from the 33 heavens began to panic in their hearts. Those who were still harboring some thoughts suddenly lost their minds. No one dared to have any ideas about this side of the world. Even though there were meditative forgetting experts behind a small number of people, no one dared to stand out at this time. If something went wrong, the fate of the beast expert would be an example. If this senior dean's strength were to spread out, I don't know how many people would be frightened. On the other side of the crowd, Zheng Xingchun chuckled and said, if the experts from the 33 heavens knew the exact strength of the Holy Great Emperor, their expressions would be even more interesting than right now. Senior, we don't intend to take over this world. We just came here out of curiosity. Since Senior has spoken, we won't act rashly. At this moment, a human expert at the 8th sky of a mortal realm walked out from the crowd and bowed to the Holy Great Emperor. His words were filled with respect. This was the respect one would have for a powerhouse. This world isn't a forbidden area. You can enter it at any time as long as you follow the rules. Wait for a few more years. Even if you come here to take over this world, I won't ask you anything. But during this period of time, if anyone dares to act presumptuously, this old man will not let them off easily. The Holy Great Emperor said as he looked at the experts of the 33 heavens. He wanted to protect this realm because of its uniqueness. The overall strength of Shenwu world was still very weak, and any one of the major forces of the 33 heavens would be able to sweep through everything. The living beings here would not be able to resist them. After a few more years, when all the creatures here grew up, they would have enough strength to fight against the 33 heavens. That kind of situation would also be beneficial to Shenwu world's development. The most holy great emperor wasn't blindly trying to protect his own people, he was only doing this out of necessity. Junior understands. The human clan expert nodded and apologized. Then, he led the people he was familiar with and broke through the void to leave this world. Everyone who came here was an expert. Many of them could see the difference in this world and naturally understood the holy great emperor's actions. Regardless of what they were thinking, everyone began to evacuate, no longer lingering. With a seated Oblivion Realm expert guarding this place, they didn't have the ability to act presumptuously. In just a short while, the originally bustling crowd scattered like birds and beasts. Soon, everyone had left. Senior Dean, please stay in the desolate country. Du Tingxian stepped forward and said to the dean. The Holy Great Emperor nodded and followed Du Tingxian, Zhen Xingchun, Du Yunlong, Jialo Jueyu, and the others into the palace. General Gue Hua, Gu Xinyan, Gua Xiaofeng, Teng Yimo, Zhang Yishan, Huang Xiaofeng, Yu Yu, and the others from Tianwu Academy also followed. Shenwu world calmed down. After Du Xiaofu finished his breakthrough, this world had grown to a terrifying scale, surpassing the 33 heavens. In the following period of time, countless living beings continued to cultivate in seclusion. They all wanted to reach a higher level as soon as possible so that they could contribute a portion of their strength in the upcoming chaos of the demon race. Under such unique conditions, everyone's strength grew at an extremely fast rate. It could only be described as terrifying. On the other side, Du Xiaofu brought Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, and the people from the various holy lands and divine nations to the supreme Changrong sky. With his current cultivation, although he couldn't ignore the barrier of the great world like a seated Oblivion Realm expert, he was much faster than an ordinary Ninth Heavens Immortal Realm expert. Du Xiaofu settled down in Yuqing Divine Nation and paid his respects to his master, Yu Yuqian. He also met with Ouyang Shuang, Du Xiaoba, Du Xiaolin, and Du Xiaohuang before rushing to the entrance of the Fiend God battlefield. Many experts from the divine nations had been sent out to guard the Fiend God battlefield. The 11 siblings of the Lu family had also gone there. Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and the others were also there. Only Zihong Divine General He Mingchong, Diwu Divine General Hua Yuankuan, and Yunling Divine General Duan Baichuan remained in the Divine Nations. After senior brother Yu Taiyin had passed down the position of Divine Emperor, he had disappeared without a trace. Du Xiaofu knew that he had gone to search for an opportunity to break through. He didn't know when he would return. The Fiend God battlefield is a crucial place. Countless experts from the 33 heavens have gathered outside the gates of hell. Once the demon race appears, they will immediately kill them. Du Xiaofu already knew this news. In fact, although there were many demon race members who had come out of hell, compared to the 33 heavens army, they were still very few. However, the demon race had reappeared in the world. No one in the 33 heavens dared to neglect them. Therefore, they had sent a large number of people to guard the Fiend God battlefield and do nothing. The purpose was to be prepared for the unexpected and to be ready for war at any time. Du Xiaofu agreed with this method. It was better to prevent trouble before it happened. It was better than being flustered at the last moment. On the other hand, one could see the terrifying atmosphere brought about by the demon race's reappearance. It made everyone nervous. We've arrived at the Fiend God battlefield. It didn't take long for Du Xiaofu and the others to reach the Fiend God battlefield. The terrifying void crack at the entrance was like an abyss of death hanging in the sky. It released a terrifying aura and a scarlet light. It was like the giant mouth of a demon that could devour everything. There were many experts guarding this place. They were people from the transcendent Changrong heaven. After Du Xiaofu revealed his identity, he was allowed to enter. After entering, he rushed straight to the gates of hell. Soon, he saw a large number of experts. Divine Emperor, Your Majesty, Martial Uncle Du, Brother Du, Yuqing Divine Nations Fan Yushu, Meng Dongyang, Zhang Haoran, Tang Yuanshan, Yu Yuran, and the others were all here. Yu Qingyin, Yu Chengyao, Yu Chengxi, Jia Jixin, He Jibai, Duan Yizong, Hua Youguang, and the other upper echelons of the Divine Nation also greeted him. Du Xiaofu also saw Tru Yin Holy Grounds Holy Son Qi Yuanlin, Huan Chu Holy Grounds Holy Son Suimo Yin, Qing Tsang Holy Grounds Holy Son Xiao Yun, and the Mirror Moon Holy Grounds Holy Daughter Lian Kaiyun. Besides them, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Long Ke, Long Su, Chu Daoju, and Long San from the 3,000 Great Worlds were also present. When they saw Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, and Chu Daoju all widened their eyes in shock. Especially the meditative realm experts, they were all shocked to the extreme. Martial Uncle Du's current cultivation, Lu Jingyun's face was filled with shock as he looked at Du Xiaofu in disbelief. With his strength, he could see through Du Xiaofu in an instant and know his current cultivation level. It was also because of this that Lu Jingyun found it hard to calm down. Martial Uncle Du's cultivation speed is too fast. I'm afraid it won't be long before he catches up to us. Long Ke looked a little distressed. He rubbed his forehead and said with a bitter smile, in just a few hundred years, Du Xiaofu was already an expert of the second level of the Void Path. His strength had already surpassed the 9th level of the Immortal Realm. This also made Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and the others speechless. We've known each other for less than 1,000 years, and we've already been surpassed. How are we supposed to live? Long San's domineering and dignified face pulled a long face, as if he felt that life was not too good. When they first met Du Xiaofu that year, this kid had just entered the true Severing Realm. Now, he had already left them, the experts of the older generation, behind. In comparison, they were like trash. They all felt that they had no face to see anyone. Only Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and the other seated Oblivion experts did not have such a feeling. After all, these people had already reached the extreme realm and were still much stronger than the current Du Xiaofu. Freak. After a long time, Ling Feng gritted his teeth and said such a sentence. The others nodded in agreement. In fact, not only Du Xiaofu, but also Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing's strength had shocked everyone. Looking at these two little guys, I feel like I'm looking at Jingyun and Yu Xiao from that year. Chu Daoju said with a bitter smile. Little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao's cultivation base was also intimidating. They were at the fifth sky of a mortal realm and the fourth sky of a mortal realm respectively. Moreover, they had mastered many primitive laws. Under such circumstances, even if they had to fight against high-level immortal realm experts, they still had the power to fight. Jumping realms to fight wasn't a problem. How's the situation now? Du Xiaofu asked the others directly. After a simple greeting, they didn't care about the terrifying strength of Du Xiaofu's group anymore. They started to talk about the Demon Clan. The situation is still good. More and more Demon Clan members are coming out of the 18 layers of hell. However, their numbers aren't big. So, it's easy to deal with them now. However, everyone's nerves are tense. They don't dare to relax. Chu Daoju walked to Du Xiaofu and said. Du Xiaofu nodded. This situation was similar to what he had expected. According to the current situation, the Demon Clan won't make a big move. We're just guarding here for peace of mind. Long San took over and said to Du Xiaofu, if the Demon Clan wanted to conquer the 33 heavens, it would be like a flood breaking through a dam. Their momentum would be fierce. The current situation couldn't even be considered a small skirmish. All the major worlds and powers had entered the Fiend God battle realm as a precaution. They could deal with any situation that might arise at any time. I wonder how far Jiangxin, Dongli Qihuang, Chen Yin, and the others have progressed in the 18 layers of hell. Du Xiaofu frowned as he thought of this problem. Everything that had happened to the Demon Clan had been caused by Jiangxin. He was Luo Ho of the primordial era. Jiangxin had entered the 18 layers of hell to fuse with Luo Ho's suppressed primordial spirit. Once he finished, the true battle would begin. It's not just the Demon Clan. The Blood Ancestor and the Qinshu Jinghua Heaven's Beast Clan are also a huge threat. However, with the Blood Ancestor holding down the fort, the 33 Heavens inhabitants don't dare exterminate them for the time being. Suddenly, Ling Feng sighed softly and said, Du Xiaofu had also heard of this matter before. Back then, after Little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao obtained the inheritance of the primordial phoenix in the burial sky mountain, the sealing power there slowly dissipated. At the time, the Qinshu Jinghua Heaven's Beast Clan had mobilized en masse to welcome the Blood Ancestor back. However, they'd been stopped by Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and a dozen other meditative forgetfulness experts. However, not long after Du Xiaofu had returned to the divine martial world, the Blood Ancestor had broken the final shackles of his own accord. He'd broken free, causing a huge upheaval in Inqiong Boundless Heaven. After his emergence, he'd returned to the Qinshu Jinghua Heaven. Due to the Blood Ancestor's emergence, the 33 Heavens inhabitants had finally realized the severity of the situation. When the Demon Clan appeared later on, countless people began to panic. We can't let the Beast Clan live. Their existence will lead to countless deaths in the future war. If something goes wrong, it might even affect the final outcome. Du Xiaofu pondered for a moment, then said these words. As one of the 33 heavens, the Qinshu Jinghua Heaven's overall strength was unquestionable. If all the Beast Clan experts of that world were to come out in full force, they'd be able to pin down countless creatures. In addition, there was the sky-high Blood Ancestor. He was a terrifying existence who'd rebuked the 33 heavens in ancient times and slaughtered millions upon millions of creatures. If there was a way to get rid of these people, it'd definitely greatly reduce the pressure in the future war. Many of the ancestors of the major powers have already come out of seclusion. We've discussed this among ourselves several times, but many of us have decided to wait and see. The Blood Ancestor's ferocity is too strong. Not many people dare to provoke him directly. That's no different from courting death. Lu Jingyun slowly walked out and said, the ancestors of the major powers actually had another idea. That is, there might be experts of the same level as the Blood Ancestor in the 33 heavens in ancient times. If those people could come out and lead many creatures on a punitive expedition to the Qinshu Jinghua Heaven, they'd have a better chance. Therefore, everyone was waiting. They wanted to wait and see the situation before making a final decision. No, we can't wait any longer. The experts of the ancient times are just illusory things. Nobody can be sure whether they've all died in that era or not. Du Xiaofu shook his head fiercely. He paced a few steps in the void and said, we must act as soon as possible. The one who strikes first gains the advantage. The one who strikes late loses the advantage. The Qianshu Jinghua heaven is a malignant tumor. Removing it as soon as possible will do us no harm. He deeply felt that the beasts of that world couldn't be left alive. They were a huge threat. Removing them as soon as possible would only bring them benefits. It's just that the blood ancestor's power is too strong. Nobody dares to take action directly. If the few of us set out, we might be able to fight against the Qianshu Jinghua heaven. But once the blood ancestor intervenes, we'll only be defeated like a landslide. Chu Daoju said so with a tight frown. If they want to kill the countless beasts of the Qianshu Jinghua heaven smoothly, they'll have to send the forces of at least 2 or more worlds. And this is under the premise that the blood ancestor won't get involved. Therefore, the risk of doing this was too great. That's good. Du Xiaofu suddenly changed the topic and said, "You go and persuade the experts of the other worlds to send people to fight. As for the blood ancestor, I have a way." He looked at the people around him with shining eyes and said aloud, "What way do you have?" Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San and the others were all stunned by Du Xiaofu's words and looked at him in confusion. Although this guy's strength had surpassed theirs, he was still far from the ordinary meditative realm. How could he possibly have a way to deal with the blood ancestor? This made everyone feel puzzled. They felt that this guy was very strange. On one side, Lu Jingyun seemed to think of something and said, "Since Marshal Uncle Du said so, we'll do as you say. We'll contact the experts of the other worlds as soon as possible and persuade them to send people to fight together." That's good. Du Xiaofu nodded and said, he had his own ideas. It was impossible to deal with the blood ancestor with his own strength. He placed all his hopes on his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu. Since he was an important part of his plan, he must be paying attention to all his movements at all times. It was not difficult to enter the Qianshu Jinghua heaven and kill countless beasts. The difficult part was dealing with the blood ancestor. Du Xiaofu believed that once the blood ancestor went out and participated in the battle, his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu would definitely appear. With his terrifying strength, dealing with the injured blood ancestor would be a piece of cake. I'll immediately send a message to the major forces. Seeing that Lu Jingyun had nodded, Chu Daoju did not say anything else. He called out, and the people of the divine nations immediately flew away with him and began to run around the fiend god battlefield to communicate with the experts of the other forces. Kill our way into the Qianshu Jinghua heaven and remove this tumor. Only then can we truly deal with the next move of the demon race wholeheartedly. Watching everyone leave, Du Xiaofu thought to himself, the demon race was very fierce, which could be seen from the results of the ancient war. In this era, it was impossible to count on people like Great God Pangu and Lord Daluo to fight, even though Lord Daluo had told him that Great God Pangu had not really fallen. Chapter 2895. Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and the others acted quickly. After they made the decision with Du Xiaofu, they immediately met with the other major powers of the 33 heavens. After that, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, Long Ke, Long Su, and a dozen other young experts of the meditative realm came out to persuade them. Many experts of the 33 heavens gradually came to know that these young meditative realm experts came from a place called the 3,000 Great Worlds. Many people were curious about the 3,000 Great Worlds, but now that the demon race was facing a great enemy, no one dared to ask about it in detail. They only made some simple inquiries. However, this couldn't hide one thing. These young people were deeply related to the Yuqing divine kingdom of the Changrong heaven. This represented the ultimate power of a large world. No one dared to neglect it. Their opinions were naturally very persuasive. Moreover, after hearing that the young Yuqing divine emperor had a way to deal with the blood ancestor, the ancestors of the various major powers all fell into a long period of contemplation. The result of this contemplation was that most of them chose to believe it. The 3,000 Great Worlds are definitely not simple. The Lu family alone has so many meditative realm experts, and all of them are very young. It's hard to imagine. According to this logic, they must have even more terrifying existences on their side. They might even have Dao-bearing realm experts. Someone among the experts of the 33 heavens made such a guess. With the support of Lu Jingyun and the others, they slowly began to believe Du Xiaofu's words. They felt that he might really have a powerful background that could deal with the blood ancestor. If that's the case, then let's kill our way to the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. We can't let those beasts live, someone said. His eyes filled with killing intent. The existence of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven was like a bone in the throat and a thorn in the back for all living beings. If they didn't remove it, no one would be able to live comfortably. If it weren't for the blood ancestors' ferocity, the beings of the 33 heavens would have already razed that world to the ground. They wouldn't have delayed until today. Since everyone has made their decision, then let's pick the best people and depart as soon as possible. This time, we must sweep through the Qianshu Jinghua heaven directly. We can't leave this huge disaster behind. Du Xiaofu stepped out and said to the crowd when he saw that the old ancestors of the various forces had made their decisions. All right, let's go make preparations immediately. We'll sweep through the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Leave the beasts there to us. If the blood ancestor interferes, the Yuqing Divine Emperor will have to think of a way to deal with him. Many people nodded, and then they dispersed, returning to their own forces to make arrangements. After waiting for some time, most of the worlds in the 33 heavens had sent out a large number of experts. Each world had one or two patriarchs of the meditative forgetfulness realm, as well as countless eternal and truth-severing experts. They formed a majestic army that gathered at the entrance of the God-Devil battle realm. On this trip, there are no less than 40 to 50 people in the meditative and forgetful state. Their overall power is much, much stronger than that of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Let's go together. There can't be any accidents this time. Lu Jingyun said to Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Chong, and the others. All right, Du Xiaofu nodded. He knew that Lu Jingyun had seen through his plan. If they went with him, he would have more confidence. Let's go. When everyone was ready, Du Xiaofu waved his hand. Together with many experts, they broke through the void and charged toward the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Several tens of meditative and forgetful state experts struck out directly, creating a majestic void passage for many experts to enter. With the help of this void passage, their speed of reaching the Qian Su Jinghua heaven would be greatly increased. It would be even more convenient than using a wormhole. The innumerable army moved. Everyone was brimming with killing intent. When they all appeared in the other world, their killing intent was condensed to the extreme. We've arrived at the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. These beasts, we've allowed them to live for countless years. It's time for them to pay the price. Colluding with the demons, they should be killed. Violent auras surged from all over the experts' bodies. Their figures floated high in the sky, absolutely overbearing. The arrival of these people also caused a great disturbance in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Who are those people? They all look so scary. Have they come from other worlds? They seem to have come to the Qian Su Jinghua heaven with ill intentions this time. What a terrifying army. Are they going to flatten this world? For those beasts, whose cultivations were not too strong and whose backgrounds were not too deep, many of them were stupefied when they saw so many experts descend on this world. Judging from the attitude of the newcomers, it was very obvious that these people did not come with any friendly intentions. But those beasts with powerful backgrounds had a completely different attitude toward this matter. Quickly inform the clans that the experts from the outside world have arrived. Fight them immediately. Tisk tsk tsk. These outsiders are really bold. Do they want to die? This kind of power is indeed enough to sweep across the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven. But they seem to have forgotten the existence of the blood ancestor. Senior blood ancestor may not get into action for the time being. Let's fight them first. Luckily, we've already anticipated this kind of thing and made some corresponding preparations. Inform the clans to fight them immediately. Voices came out from the mouths of the experts of the Qianshu Jinghua heaven, one after another. Some of them let out gloomy laughs. Some of them felt their blood boiling. They had already predicted all of this and sent the news out in an instant. However, even more people still had extremely gloomy expressions on their faces. They discovered that their opponents were numerous and powerful. They were several times more powerful than the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Luckily, countless beasts' major powers had made some preparations. They began to mobilize their forces in an orderly manner. Immediately, the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven boiled up. Countless experts also began to gather. Under the attack of the meditative forgetfulness expert, it did not take long for them to gather together and confront the experts from the other worlds of the 33 heavens. Du Xiaofu, it's really you again. Very soon, the experts of the Taisher Demon Dragon clan, the Green Blood Giant clan, the Divine Underworld clan, and so on appeared. They saw Du Xiaofu standing in front of the crowd. There was deep hatred in the eyes of these beasts. They had suffered too many losses at the hands of this human brat, and today, with him as the leader, they came to attack the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. That's right, it's me. I know you all want to kill me very much, but I can tell you with certainty that this kind of thinking is nothing more than a daydream. Du Xiaofu's eyes hardened as he responded, Is that so? Du Xiaofu, if you have the guts, fight me. I swear I'll tear you to pieces. At this moment, the Dragon Devil ancestor of the Taisher Demon Dragon clan stepped out. His eyes contained endless hatred. He stared at Du Xiaofu with fierce eyes, as if he wanted to tear him to pieces with his gaze. The Dragon Devil ancestor was the first meditative forgetfulness expert to come into contact with Du Xiaofu. At that time, Du Xiaofu was just an ant in the truth-severing stage. He was the kind of person who could be killed directly with a gaze. However, when that long blade appeared at that time, not only did he fail to kill this brat, he was injured by the blade instead, causing his cultivation to regress greatly. From the second stage of meditative forgetfulness, he fell directly to the first stage of meditative forgetfulness. And now, nearly 1,000 years had passed, and this injury was even more serious. The Dragon Devil ancestor was shocked to find that his strength was actually only at the initial stage of meditative forgetfulness, which made him very angry. It could be said that Du Xiaofu was the chief culprit of all this, causing him to have such an encounter. Fight with you? Why not? I'm just afraid an old bastard like you won't be able to take a few hits from me. Du Xiaofu coldly snorted, his purple robe fluttering in the wind. He took a step forward in the air, facing the Dragon Devil ancestor, and shouted, Come and fight. Good boy. I thought you only knew how to hide under other people's pants, but I didn't expect you to actually have the guts to fight me. Since you want to die, this old man naturally can't disappoint you. At this moment, the Dragon Devil ancestor was so happy that he was about to jump up and down. His heart was incomparably excited. He originally only wanted to vent the emotions in his heart, but he didn't expect Du Xiaofu to actually dare to accept the challenge. Under the other party's deliberate concealment, although he couldn't see through the other party's true cultivation, he could still sense that this brat had grown terrifyingly. However, this couldn't stop anything. Even if the other party was in the Void Dao realm, as long as he hadn't directly stepped into that profound place, it was impossible for him to be a match for a meditative forgetfulness realm cultivator. Therefore, the Dragon Devil ancestor swore that after he made his move, he would definitely kill Du Xiaofu in an instant, so that he wouldn't have any chance to resist. Kill. An ancient word came out from the mouth of the Dragon Devil ancestor. His aged figure rushed out and headed straight for Du Xiaofu. With a flip of his wrist, he struck out a large amount of the source energy of the Great Path. The fingers of his wrinkled palms were like withered branches as they flicked repeatedly in the void, weaving endless rules and order, affecting a large area of the nearby space. As his hands moved, Du Xiaofu's body was instantly wrapped up by a majestic force. Boss, Father, Divine Emperor, Brother Du. Seeing all of this, many people cried out anxiously, especially Du Xiaoyao, Little Star, and the others who were close to Du Xiaofu. They knew that Du Xiaofu's strength had increased at a terrifying rate, but presumably, if he were to fight against a true meditative rancor, he wouldn't have the slightest chance of winning. Don't worry, let Uncle Master Du fight with him. Maybe the result won't be what you think. Lu Jingyun said as he looked at the purple-robed figure in the air with a deep smile on his face. He stopped the crowd and comforted them softly, stopping them from rushing forward. Is it really okay? Du Xiaoyao, Little Star, Chu Daoju, and the other experts all looked at each other in dismay, somewhat doubtful. However, looking at Lu Jingyun's confident appearance, their worried mood slowly eased. Let's not just watch. These beasts must all die. At this time, An accompanying meditative rancor said ferociously, drawing the attention of most people from Du Xiaofu and the Dragon Devil ancestor. The purpose of their trip was to wipe out the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, so that the countless beasts here wouldn't become a disaster in the future war. What are you waiting for? Kill. Another expert said loudly. His voice spread in all directions and was heard by countless people. The Qian Su Jinghua heaven colluded with the Devil clan. It must be destroyed. An expert from the Yinxiang Wu heaven shouted coldly. His domineering and majestic voice made Du Xiaofu and the others tremble. What are you waiting for? Follow me and kill. Another meditative rancor shouted. In an instant, a large amount of origin energy of the great Tao spread out in the air and attacked the crowd of beasts. Kill. How could the others continue to delay? They even raised their swords and knives and rushed out. Kill. None of the beasts in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven should be left alive. This huge disaster can't be allowed to continue to exist. Since you dared to collude with the Devil clan, you must pay the corresponding price. The price is to make you disappear from this world. In the rage of the crowd, countless people collided with each other, breaking out a shocking battle. For a moment, the earth in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven shook and the earth cracked. Huge energy hurricanes surged and roared in all directions, piercing through heaven and earth and sinking the sun and moon. In just a short time, the blood of living beings spilled in the sky and dyed half of the sky red. Kill. Loud shouts reverberated through the air, piercing through the 9 heavens and shattering rocks. The reaction of the beasts in this world could not be said to be slow. They had already expected that they would be encircled and annihilated by the experts from the outside world, so they had already made preparations. As soon as these people stepped into the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, they attacked. But this scene was also within the expectations of many experts. There were really too many experts from the outside world. They blotted out the sky and blotted out the sun, crowding the entire boundless sky. Many beasts were killed in a single confrontation, dying an unnatural death. Join hands to block them. Once Senior Blood Ancestor makes his move, these people will all die without a burial ground. The experts of the Taisher Demon Dragon clan could not help but shout loudly. They felt incomparably anxious about this scene. The overall strength of the 33 heavens was really too strong. It could really sweep them away easily. If it were not for the existence of the Blood Ancestor, this huge backer, perhaps many beasts would have already collapsed by now. How could they still have the heart to continue fighting? And this was also their deepest belief. Humph, I'm afraid you won't be able to wait for the Blood Ancestor to come and save your lives. Chu Daoju's words were deep. His long saber slashed down toward the sky. Immediately, a part of the world was cut open. A huge crack appeared from the top to the bottom, standing between heaven and earth. Along with this, the body of an immortal beast was directly cut into 2 halves by this saber. His corpse was separated from the middle and continued to be twisted into a bloody mist by the tyrannical power. He could not be more dead. Chapter 2896. When his invincible 9th heavenly layer cultivation base burst out, how tyrannical and absolute, he instantly killed several beast men. And in other places, a group of meditative experts were also fighting with each other. Endless great Tao origin condensed into brilliant rays of light, sweeping in all directions and shaking the heavens and the earth. The entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven was shaking. Mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Heaven and earth shook. The experts of the other worlds of the 33 heavens were completely surrounding the Qian Su Jinghua heavens' many beast men. In just a moment, a large number of experts had fallen. Of course, most of them were beast men of this world. Almost every one of them was facing the joint attack of several experts. Clouds of blood mist exploded and filled the void. Then, it was swept away by the tyrannical power into nothingness. Among everyone, only Lu Jingyun didn't make a move. He stood in the air with one hand behind his back, watching the battle between Du Xiaofu and the Dragon Devil ancestor with shining eyes. That purple-robed youth was his martial uncle, but after all, he had only been cultivating for a short period of time. His cultivation base hadn't reached the peak yet. In Lu Jingyun's view, He was afraid that he still couldn't compete with the Dragon Devil ancestor, so he was ready to help at any time. Du Xiaofu absolutely wouldn't allow an accident to happen here. However, the more he watched, the more shocked Lu Jingyun became. "Martial Uncle Du's strength," he murmured, unable to restrain the astonishment on his face. Under his gaze, he saw that outside the Dragon Devil ancestor's body, a terrifying Great Tao origin energy was wantonly spilling out. Like waves of dense mist, it turned into a chaotic state. On the other hand, this chaotic state ceaselessly transformed and formed a world that seemed real, and it enveloped Du Xiaofu within it. As a meditative expert, although he had suffered a Tao injury in the past and his cultivation base had fallen greatly, after all, his foundation was deep. If he really used his full strength, the scene was frightening. That Great Tao origin energy kept splitting and changing, turning into a vast and surging Great Tao origin energy. Then it condensed into the most ferocious Great Tao origin attack, directly falling on Du Xiaofu's body. "You old bastard, is that all you've got?" Du Xiaofu's eyes were clear as he stood in midair. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. Time, space, matter, life. The power of the four primordial laws surged out at the same time, flowing like flowing water. The origin energy of these laws constantly intertwined, forming a huge cocoon of light that firmly protected his body. Endless Tao rhythms were naturally born, filling the void. The quantitative change caused a qualitative change, and also produced the power of the Great Tao origin, resisting the attack of the demonic dragon ancestor. Such a scene made it difficult for the terrifying power displayed by the dragon demon ancestor to touch him. Du Xiaofu understood that his current cultivation base was at the second level of the ethereal path realm. Of course, he was much stronger than the ninth sky of immortal realm. However, he was still far from the first level of the meditative realm. The origin of the great path he had created wasn't thick enough. However, he still had his own trump cards. If he used all of them, he still had some hope to compete with the demonic dragon ancestor whose cultivation base had plummeted. "Du Xiaofu, since you want to die so much, this old man can't let you down." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the demonic dragon ancestor's old eyes narrowed, releasing a strong hatred. As his voice fell, the pair of shriveled dragon horns on his forehead emitted a dazzling scarlet light that directly pierced through all the obstacles. Even the layer of protection outside Du Xiaofu's body gradually melted like snow under the blazing sun. Such a change made Du Xiaofu's expression dignified. An old man who had been accumulating power for countless years, indeed, couldn't be underestimated. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. In front of Du Xiaofu's shocked eyes, the two dragon horns of the demonic dragon ancestor directly left his forehead, flying into the air and expanding in the wind. In the blink of an eye, the two dragon horns stood up like pillars that reached the heavens. They were indomitable, reaching up to the heavens and reaching down to the nine hells. "Du Xiaofu, I admit that you are indeed very powerful. To be able to cultivate to this extent at such a young age is truly commendable. But if you dare to be arrogant in front of me with your little bit of strength, then you are simply courting death." The demonic dragon ancestor shouted loudly, shaking the void and shaking the heavens. He glanced at Lu Jingyun, who was quietly watching the battle in the distance. When he discovered that the other party had no intention of interfering for the time being, he felt even more secure in his heart. As long as no one else interfered, Du Xiaofu would definitely be unable to withstand a single blow. After the demonic dragon ancestor finished speaking, an old palm stretched out and gently pushed. Rumble. One of the two gigantic dragon horn pillars fell to the ground, emitting a terrifying rumbling sound. These two dragon horns were too majestic and thick. As they collapsed, they released layers of incomparably terrifying power, transforming into an invisible force that gave people an extremely oppressive feeling. What a terrifying technique! Du Xiaofu's eyelids kept twitching. Looking at this scene, he felt as if he had seen the great Tao collapsing. It was terrifying. The heavens and earth shook, and the sky was directly smashed into a state of chaos by the collapsing dragon horn. A huge ravine appeared on the ground, transforming into a fiery abyss. It was terrifying and terrifying. Under this horrifying scene, Du Xiaofu seemed to be stunned. His whole body was hit by an endless amount of impact. He had never truly fought with a meditative expert before. This time, when he fought with the demonic dragon ancestor, the shock he received from the bottom of his heart was incomparably great. Little bastard, let's see what other methods you have to block this old man's killing move. The demonic dragon ancestor's eyes were incomparably deep. He looked at Du Xiaofu as if he was looking at a dead man. The corner of his mouth could not help but curl into a sneer. He glanced at the distant Lu Jingyun again and secretly prayed in his heart. He hoped that the other party would be as arrogant as Du Xiaofu and would not be in a hurry to make a move. If that was the case, this brat would undoubtedly die today. Do you think this little trick can scare me? Du Xiaofu coldly snorted and calmed down from his shock. Facing the huge, heavenly dragon horn pillar that was like Mount Tai pressing down on him, the power in his body trembled endlessly, jumping up and down like boiling water. The power of the origin of laws boiled, and the power of the four primitive laws began to intertwine and fuse with each other. When these law powers fused to a certain extent, they suddenly began to produce terrifying splits. Following that, a huge 8 trigrams diagram appeared outside Du Xiaofu's body. This 8 trigrams diagram was different from his void 8 trigrams technique. The power of the void 8 trigrams was based on the law of matter, and then mixed with the other 3 primitive laws. They blended and rotated together to form a whole, and then evolved into a myriad of forms. But now, the 8 trigrams diagram that Du Xiaofu had constructed was directly derived from the power of the 4 symbols. Each primitive law was divided into 2, each occupying an area, and engraved with the profound power of the origin. Then, it turned into a divine ring, as if the great Tao had a beginning and an end, and the head and tail were connected, reaching perfection. Origin killing sky sword, kill. Such a roar came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth, and the purple-gold heavenly tower had appeared in his hand at some point in time. He raised it up, raised it over his head, and brazenly slashed down. Qi, the divine ring evolved, and all of its power poured into the purple-gold heavenly tower. A resplendent swordlight soared into the sky, slashing apart the firmament. It instantly appeared in front of the heavenly dragon horn pillar of the demonic dragon ancestor, directly attacking from a distance. As the sword light descended, a terrifying void crack appeared, and everything it touched was instantly destroyed. The sword light pointed straight at the heavenly dragon horn pillar. This was Du Xiaofu's strongest technique. He directly used it against the enemy. Against an expert in the meditative realm, he could not continue to hold back. Only by attacking with all his strength would he have a chance to fight. Du Xiaofu was not an arrogant person, nor was he an ignorant person. He knew the reason behind this. Qi, in the next moment, the incomparably terrifying sword light and the heavenly pillar collided. The power of these 2 attacks was absolutely tyrannical. They carried with them an extremely strong force, and in an instant, a terrifying scene erupted. The dragon horn pillar of light was directly cut by the light sword, and a terrifying crack appeared. The scarlet light also dimmed by quite a bit in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's origin-killing sky sword also broke apart inch by inch, turning into a rain of light that sprinkled down into the void. It was indescribably gorgeous. Martial Uncle Du's methods are truly inconceivable. In the distance, Lu Jingyun couldn't help but mutter to himself as he watched this scene. He could see just how profound Du Xiaofu's methods were. The power of the origin of the laws could actually reach such a level when used in his hands. In addition, he was already at the 2nd level of the Void Tao realm, so much so that he could produce the origin of the Great Tao. Thus, when he fought with the demonic dragon ancestor, he actually did not seem to be at a disadvantage. How is this possible? The demonic dragon ancestor was also stunned. His shriveled lips opened, but he was no longer able to say anything. He had no choice but to admit that Du Xiaofu was truly a freak. He had actually used such an attack to directly resist his move. Under the gaze of the demonic dragon ancestor, his dragon horn was directly cut into 2. The power within it exploded and collapsed, like a piece of red-hot iron, It fell down piece by piece. This explosive energy was still devouring Du Xiaofu's broken light sword. They were entangled with each other and finally turned into nothingness. Ugh! A muffled groan came from the demonic dragon ancestor's throat, and soon after, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that the destruction of the dragon horn had affected his body, causing him to suffer quite a bit of damage, and it was precisely because of this that his eyes became even brighter, and his expression became even more sinister. Good boy, you're actually able to do this. This old man would like to see how you will withstand this old man's second attack. The demonic dragon ancestor's words were gloomy as he looked straight at Du Xiaofu. He could see that the purple-robed youth had also suffered a huge shock. In that terrifying fluctuation just now, Du Xiaofu's body had been torn apart by the power of the great Tao, and his primordial spirit had also been severely injured. At this moment, his aura had withered by more than half. The demonic dragon ancestor believed that this brat would definitely not be able to withstand his second attack. Kill. An aged voice came out from the mouth of the demonic dragon ancestor. He gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and pushed it out once again. Boom. The second dragon horn fell down and once again smashed down fiercely, falling towards Du Xiaofu. The entire sky was stirred up, churning endlessly. A large expanse of primal chaos appeared, as terrifying as a pot of boiling paste. This was truly the collapse of the great Tao. The scene was extremely terrifying. That terrifying power leaked out, causing Du Xiaofu to feel as if he was being pressed tightly into the void by an invisible hand, making it difficult for him to move. Since I can block an old bastard like you the first time, then I can block you the second time. Du Xiaofu opened his mouth and said. The wounds on his body that had been torn apart quickly squirmed as his body continued to heal. This was the effect of the undying profound body. At the same time, Du Xiaofu let out an earth-shaking dragon roar. The azure spirit armor was unleashed by him, transforming into the body of an azure dragon that danced in the air. With the help of the azure spirit armor, the might of the collapsing heavenly pillar instantly decreased by a lot. Du Xiaofu was able to move freely. The injuries he had suffered earlier were also under control. He once again channeled all of his strength, crazily stirring up the origin power of the 4 great primordial laws. Very quickly, the 8 trigrams appeared once again, and then it transformed into a divine ring. Origin sky-killing sword, kill, Du Xiaofu shouted in a deep voice. Under his control, the purple-gold heavenly tower was raised, stimulating a sword light that was tens of thousands of feet long and brazenly slashed down. This time, not only did he unleash the origin sky-killing sword, but at the same time, the 9 divine thunder cauldrons were also struck out by him, directly colliding with the gigantic heavenly dragon horn pillar. Rumble. The 9 cauldrons were domineering in the world. Like moving mountains, the rumbling sound resounded through the void. 9 huge shadows streaked across the void, rushing straight into the 9 heavens, and collided with the terrifying heavenly dragon horn pillar at the same time. Boom, 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 boom. A series of explosions, one after another, shook the 9 heavens. The 9 divine thunder cauldrons were indeed senior brother Lu Xiaoyou's belongings. As Du Xiaofu's cultivation increased, the power that he could unleash now greatly exceeded the past. Yes, every time a cauldron collided with the heavenly dragon horn pillar, it would shake the entire pillar, and huge fragments of the dragon horn would fall down. However, the 9 cauldrons were still intact, only fiercely bounced back, and directly smashed into the crowd in the distance, instantly knocking down a large number of figures. Fortunately, Lu Jingyun acted in time, protecting the experts of the 33 heavens. The casualties were all from the Qian Su Jinghua Heavens Beast Clan. Chi. Then, Du Xiaofu's origin sky-killing sword collided with the heavenly dragon horn pillar again, and the rumbling sound was incessant. An ear-splitting sound spread in all directions, as if the sound of the great Tao had erupted, causing many experts in the surroundings to be unable to stand steadily and almost fall to the ground. Boom, boom, boom. After the gigantic light sword and the heavenly dragon horn pillar exploded at the same time, A violent energy wave was set off in the field, surging through the sky and the earth. Two figures shot out from this violent energy wave. They were Du Xiaofu and the demonic dragon ancestor. They continuously retreated a distance of 10 million miles before they could control their figures. At this time, the two's complexions were not very good. They had both suffered a powerful shock, and the blood in their bodies was surging incessantly. The meditative oblivion realm is indeed extraordinary. My strength is still quite far from that of the demonic dragon ancestor. Du Xiaofu slightly lowered his eyes, thinking so in his heart. He knew very well that the demonic dragon ancestor had been attacked by Xue Lu back then. His body was injured, and his cultivation base had plummeted. But even so, when he fought with him, he still could not gain the upper hand. It could be imagined that if he was at his peak, he would probably be directly tortured to death. How could he fight with all his strength like now? I can't even kill you like this, Du Xiaofu. This old man is unwilling. On the forehead of the demonic dragon ancestor, two shocking bloodstains were dripping down. His two dragon horns were his strongest technique, but under Du Xiaofu's fierce resistance, they had all exploded and turned into dust. If he wanted to recondense the two dragon horns, he didn't know how much energy he would have to expend. This made the demonic dragon ancestor extremely unwilling. The hatred in his heart overflowed to the heavens. If it wasn't for the fact that he had been injured that time, causing his strength to be greatly reduced, even if Du Xiaofu's talent was abnormal, reaching the void Dao realm that only existed in ancient times, he would still be like an ant in front of him. But now, the demonic dragon ancestor could only sigh helplessly. Du Xiaofu might not be able to kill him, but he couldn't do anything to him either. And this was something that he hadn't expected earlier. Martial Uncle Du, why don't you heal your injuries first? It's better to get rid of this old bastard as soon as possible. At this time, Lu Jingyun came to Du Xiaofu's side and handed him a fruit the size of a dragon's eye. It was bright red. With one look, Du Xiaofu knew that this was an extraordinary item. Without any hesitation, he received it and swallowed it into his stomach. Let's get rid of him directly. Leaving him alive will be a disaster in the end. Du Xiaofu nodded and said to Lu Jingyun, the purpose of his battle with the demonic dragon ancestor was to verify his specific strength and not to hope that he could kill the other party. Now, this idea had been achieved. He had already measured the extent of his strength, and there was no need to leave the demonic dragon ancestor alive. This was the Qian Su Jing Hua Heaven. Countless experts entered this world to kill the large number of beasts here, to prevent them from becoming a threat in the future war with the devil race. If he had the leisure to waste time with the demonic dragon ancestor, he might as well kill a few more high-level immortal experts. This way, he could reduce his losses. As for the large number of meditative realm experts in this world, with Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Long Ke, and Long Su present, they couldn't resist at all. The only outcome was death. In addition, Du Xiaofu also released his mind from beginning to end, ready to face a huge challenge at any time. Because the strongest expert in the Qian Su Jing Hua Heaven hadn't appeared yet, and that was the Blood Ancestor. He had promised everyone that he would deal with the Blood Ancestor, so when the other party appeared, he naturally had to go up at the first moment and not let the Blood Ancestor attack. Chapter 2897. Senior brother, I've pinned all my hopes on you. Du Xiaofu murmured in his heart as he swept his gaze around. The reason why he had the courage to lead countless experts to attack the Qian Su Jinghua Heaven without fear of the Blood Ancestor was because of his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu's existence. He was counting on Lu Xiaoyu to secretly keep an eye on him. In fact, Du Xiaofu was also gambling. If he lost, it was very likely that he would lose everyone's lives. But he always felt that he would not lose. Kill. Du Xiaofu no longer hesitated. After a short period of recovery, he directly unfolded his figure and charged into the crowd in the distance. He held the purple-gold heavenly tower in his hand, like a god descending to the mortal world. His ferocious might was domineering. Every time he swept out his sword, he killed a large number of beasts. Without the obstruction of the meditative oblivion expert, Du Xiaofu was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. No one could stop him. He was exceptionally valiant. Du Xiaofu, if you have the guts, continue to fight with me. On the other side, the demonic dragon ancestor roared in a hoarse voice. He wanted to rush to Du Xiaofu's side and stop him, but he saw a figure appear in front of him. Old bastard, you can go die now. These light words came out of Lu Jingyun's mouth. He unhurriedly struck out with a palm. There seemed to be no fluctuations coming out of it. It seemed incomparably ordinary. But after such a palm strike, the demonic dragon ancestor's entire body seemed to have been immobilized. He stood in place, unable to move at all. What terrifying strength! His heart was overwhelmed with shock, and he couldn't even speak. He could only watch as the palm grew larger and larger in front of him, and finally landed on his old body. PFFF, unsurprisingly, after Lu Jingyun's palm fell, waves of terrifying power were emitted and brazenly attacked the demonic dragon ancestor's body. That body, which seemed to be on the verge of death, instantly exploded into a cloud of blood. Until his death, the eyes of the dragon demon ancestor were frozen in boundless fear. In front of a powerhouse at the third level of meditative oblivion, he had fallen back to the first level of meditative oblivion. He was completely unable to withstand a single blow and died in the blink of an eye. The source power of the great Tao that Lu Jingyun released was too vast. How could it be something that the Dragon Devil Patriarch could withstand? It's time for the Blood Ancestor to appear, right? Killing the Dragon Demon Ancestor with a single palm strike, Lu Jingyun seemed to have only done an ordinary thing, appearing incomparably indifferent. His bright eyes pierced through the void, gazing into the distance through the boundless barriers. The biggest enemy in the Qinshu Jinghua heaven is the Blood Ancestor. As the strongest person on this trip, he naturally has to keep an eye on him. However, he couldn't find any trace of the Blood Ancestor at all. The power of his origin spirit could only detect a vast expanse of space, making it difficult for him to capture the Blood Ancestor's figure and movements. It would have been even better if you hadn't shown up. We could have gotten rid of all the beasts in this realm and avoided more losses. Lu Jingyun retracted his gaze and muttered to himself. He turned around and joined the terrifying slaughter in the surroundings. At this moment, the battle in the Qinshu Jinghua heaven was exceptionally fierce. Countless experts were fighting valiantly in one place. The experts from the various major worlds of the 33 heavens had firmly gained the upper hand. They simply swept through the countless beasts in the Qinshu Jinghua heaven. In the great battle, some seated oblivion experts of the beasts had fallen. Their blood spilled all over the vast sky, dyeing it red. The collapse of that frightening source of the great Tao caused the entire realm to suffer an unimaginable shock. Everywhere was devastated and in a complete mess. Stop them. As long as the Blood Ancestor appears, these people will all die without a burial place. In the crowd of beasts, the Nirvana demon ancestor of the primordial devil dragon clan shouted at the countless beasts. The hope of this realm was pinned on the Blood Ancestor. Otherwise, the Qinshu Jinghua heaven would not be able to withstand the joint attack of the 33 heavens. You can't even take care of yourself, yet you still have the mind to care about others. Beside the Nirvana demon ancestor, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, and Lu Cheng surrounded him, sealing off all of his escape routes. They were all at the third stage of the seated Oblivion realm. In a 3-versus-1 situation, they were completely suppressing the Nirvana demon ancestor. After a short exchange of blows, the Nirvana demon ancestor's aura was trembling incessantly. It was difficult for him to calm down and was tightly suppressed. He had already suffered some injuries. Let's get rid of this old bastard as soon as possible. The longer we delay, the more unforeseen events will occur. At this moment, Lu Jingyun stepped through the air and directly appeared beside the Nirvana demon ancestor. Just like before, he struck out with his palm. Kill. Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, and Lu Cheng nodded. They all jumped up and charged at the Nirvana demon ancestor at the same time. A frightening source of the great Tao shot out and evolved into the boundless power of the laws of the world. At the same time, one world after another took shape and collided with each other. The entire area was transformed into a state of chaos, surrounding the 5 figures at the same time. PFFF. The Nirvana demon ancestor screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. Under the simultaneous attack of the four, he was soon heavily injured again. Humans, how can you kill me? The Nirvana demon ancestor howled incessantly, almost going crazy. He was an extremely rare third stage of the seated Oblivion realm in the 33 heavens. He had already broken through the transmigration realm, but in front of these four, it was really difficult to deal with them. The four young men and women were terrifyingly strong. Each of them seemed to be much stronger than the Nirvana demon ancestor. He could only passively take a beating. However, the Nirvana demon ancestor was confident that if he wanted to escape, he might be able to break out of their encirclement. Do you think you can still survive today? Outside the encirclement, Lu Jingyun snorted. A resplendent light flowed out of his body and rapidly expanded. In an instant, it covered the entire void and firmly bound this part of the world. This was his rich source of the great Tao. It was like a world had expanded, trapping the Nirvana demon ancestor within. Let's work together to trap and kill him. Next, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, and Lu Cheng also moved. The terrifying power of the great Tao continued to circulate and then perfectly fused with Lu Jingyun's world. It formed a terrifying order, turning this place into an independent space. Roar. The Nirvana demon ancestor roared. His old body flashed and transformed into the Taisher demon dragon's true form. A huge dragon tens of thousands of feet long soared in the void. Its pitch-black scales flickered with a chilling luster. Its muscles bulged, releasing an explosive power. The dragon's body darted left and right, trying to break out of this world's encirclement. However, under the joint efforts of four third-stage seated Oblivion Realm experts, no matter how strong the Nirvana demon ancestor was, he couldn't break free from this shackle. He could only be tightly trapped. Old worm, you should just die. Lu Cheng stepped into the air and charged at the Nirvana demon ancestor, launching an even more ferocious attack. The others also moved together and attacked with all their might. They wanted to get rid of the Nirvana demon ancestor as soon as possible. In the surroundings, many beastmen of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven were already in despair. Under the joint efforts of the various worlds of the 33 heavens, they really had the power to easily flatten the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Every beastman had to face the encirclement of several experts at the same time. This was clearly an unequal slaughter. Moreover, as time passed, more and more beastmen died. The situation was becoming more and more one-sided. These people are too scary. They just want to kill everyone in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Why hasn't the blood ancestor appeared? We can't hold on any longer. What's the point of continuing to fight? In the end, we still can't escape death. Could it be that our Qian Su Jinghua heaven made the wrong choice? Perhaps we shouldn't have gotten involved with the demons again. At this moment, many experts from the beast race felt despair. They felt powerless in the face of the countless experts charging at them. The enemy outnumbered them by several times. There was simply no suspense in this battle. The outcome was already decided. Perhaps only the appearance of the blood ancestor could change the direction of all this. However, at this point in the battle, countless people raised their heads in anticipation, but there was still no trace of the blood ancestor. Senior blood ancestor, quickly show yourself and save your followers. Blood ancestor, show yourself. Many beastmen began to shout loudly, wanting to summon the blood ancestor's true body to come and help them. In the ancient era, all the beastmen of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven followed the Hell Blood Phoenixes and the blood ancestor into battle. It could be said that the blood ancestor was the master of the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Now, facing the attacks of the experts from the outside world, they could only pin all their hopes on the blood ancestor. The shouts of countless experts connected together, causing the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven to tremble. An invisible power spread out and pervaded the void. Under such circumstances, it was not long before a long phoenix cry broke through the clouds, pierced through gold and cracked stone, and directly penetrated people's souls. Then, under everyone's gaze, a blood-red cloud rapidly came from the distant horizon. In the blink of an eye, it rushed to the battlefield. In an instant, Everyone who was fighting was immediately bound to the ground by an invisible force. No matter if it was an ordinary true severing realm expert, those in the immortal realm, or even those in the meditative realm, it was as if they were all numb at the same time. All of their movements were frozen in an instant. A terrifying pressure shrouded the heads of every living creature, making it difficult for them to move. This kind of power was truly domineering. Seeing this scene, the countless beastmen of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven were stunned at first. Then, they burst out with endless joy and excitement. The blood ancestor has appeared. They could not help but be excited. In the entire world, or even in the entire 33 heavens, the only one who could release such a terrifying aura was the blood ancestor. With the arrival of the blood ancestor, the situation would be reversed. Very few of the experts of the 33 heavens who entered this world could leave the Qian Su Jinghua heaven alive. Has he come? In the crowd, Du Xiaofu felt an endless terrifying pressure. His whole body seemed to be nailed to the ground. After resisting with great difficulty, he resolved that terrifying pressure. Then, he slowly turned around and looked into the distance. He had heard of the blood ancestor's name many times, but it was the first time he had seen him in person. It's him. The terrifying aura we felt in the burial space mountain was exactly the same as the blood ancestors. It's just that the pressure we felt at that time was much less than what we felt now. Little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao's eyes trembled. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. In the burial space mountain of the Yinxiong Wu Dao heaven, they had obtained the inheritance of the primordial phoenix. At that time, if it were not for a mysterious power protecting them, the two of them would not have been able to survive that kind of situation and obtain tremendous benefits. During that time, they had also felt the terrifying aura of the blood ancestor. The memory was still fresh. Now that they saw it again, the two of them were even more shocked. An ancient expert, the ancestor of the Hell Blood Phoenix clan, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, and the others also stopped what they were doing and stopped fighting the beastmen. They operated the power in their bodies to resist the pressure emitted by the blood ancestor. Then, they turned around and looked into the distance. They had already expected this result, so they were not surprised. The only thing they needed to consider was how Du Xiaofu would deal with it. Of course, Lu Jingyun and the others had a rough idea of what he was planning. The blood ancestor has appeared. This is good. We're saved. With the blood ancestor taking action, no matter how strong the creatures of the 33 heavens are, they will not be able to withstand a single blow. Let's see how these people can continue to be arrogant. Since they came to our Qian Su Jinghua heaven to act so presumptuously, we can only let them die. Blood ancestor, avenge the dead experts of our Qian Su Jinghua heaven. Kill them all. Make them regret coming here. Not only will we kill them all, but we will also sweep through the entire 33 heavens and make all creatures our slaves. Many beastmen of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven shouted. Everyone was in high spirits, and their cheers grew louder and louder. Everyone could imagine how powerful the blood ancestor was. Not only ordinary experts, perhaps even third-stage meditative forgetfulness experts, were no different from clay chickens and pottery dogs in front of him. With the blood ancestor taking action, today's outcome was already decided. Many beastmen of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven were extremely excited. Some of them tightly clenched their teeth and declared that they would not only kill all the creatures that had intruded into this world today, but also sweep through the entire 33 heavens and make countless creatures their slaves, making this world above all other worlds. This ancestor has been trapped for many years. I've only come out not long ago, but someone has already come to provoke me. At this moment, the huge blood cloud that had descended from the sky had already arrived in front of everyone's eyes. That boundless blood color suddenly withdrew, and the figure of an old man appeared in front of everyone. This old man's face was ferocious. His eye sockets were deep. His old face was as frightening as a skeleton's. His eyes were faintly suffused with a blood-colored brilliance. An endless, ruthless aura flowed within them, causing people to feel intimidated just by looking at them. He looked at Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, and the other experts from the outside world. His expression did not change, but the corners of his mouth were raised in a bloodthirsty smile. It was as terrifying as if he wanted to devour people. Blood Ancestor, in your current state, do you really think that you're invincible? Lu Jingyun took a step forward and said. He stared straight at the old man who was old but contained a ruthless aura. His entire body tensed up, and the energy in his body was constantly circulating. He was ready to attack at any time to deal with the other party's possible actions. Lu Jingyun did not dare to lower his guard in the slightest. This was a terrifying existence. When the other party was famous, not to mention himself, even the 3,000 great thousand worlds behind him had not yet appeared. However, it was fortunate that the Blood Ancestor had been suppressed for countless years. Most of the might of the ancient era had been lost. Otherwise, even his father would have to deal with him seriously. A little child dares to act so arrogantly in front of this ancestor? Then this ancestor will be the first to kill you. The Blood Ancestor coldly snorted. As soon as his voice fell, he suddenly attacked. He stretched out a withered claw and directly reached for Lu Jingyun's body. When he saw the Blood Ancestor's action, Lu Jingyun's eyes suddenly narrowed. A serious expression instantly covered his handsome face. Others might not be able to see it, but in the eyes of an expert like him, he could clearly sense that the invisible laws and order of this world were being pushed aside by the Blood Ancestor's palm. This scene was like a willow branch that blocked the Blood Ancestor's path, but he had casually brushed it aside. Immediately after, the old and withered claw reached for Lu Jingyun's side. Big brother, be careful. Brother Jingyun, be careful. Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, Long Ke, Long Su, and more than 10 meditative realm experts immediately shouted. Their hearts were about to jump out of their mouths. The Blood Ancestor was an existence of the path-bearing realm. He was a terrifying expert who had broken free from the shackles of the great Tao of heaven and earth. Tens of thousands of great Tao laws could not stop him. It could be said that the power of heaven and earth could no longer bind him in any way. Lu Jingyun couldn't even move in front of him. Even though he quickly gathered the power of the origin of the Great Path, it was instantly broken. Senior brother, hurry up and show yourself. The Beast Clan in the Qian Su Jinghua Heaven absolutely cannot be left alive. I've placed all my hopes on you. At this critical moment, you must not drop the ball. On the other side, Du Xiaofu pulled a long face and was incomparably serious. He kept muttering to himself. He spread the power of his primordial spirit all around and kept praying that his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu could hurry up and show up. When the Blood Ancestor made his move, ordinary people really could not stop him. However, even in the face of such a dangerous situation, Du Xiaofu did not feel that this trip was a mistake at all. The Beast Clan in the Qian Su Jinghua Heaven could not be left alive. With the great enemy of the demon race in front of them, how could they allow the Beast Clan to cause trouble behind their backs? Chapter 2898. Du Xiaofu watched the Blood Ancestor and Lu Jingyun nervously. He was deeply worried. It was his idea to enter the Qian Su Jinghua Heaven, but Lu Jingyun had appeared the moment the Blood Ancestor appeared. That withered, branch-like palm pierced through the invisible laws and order of this world, looking down on all existences, and suddenly made contact with Lu Jingyun's body. Stop! Du Xiaofu was horrified to the point of death. He suddenly shouted. If the Blood Ancestor's attack landed, Lu Jingyun's fate could be imagined. One had to know that the Blood Ancestor was a Tao Carrier realm expert. Aside from a few gods and devils who had walked out of the primal chaos in ancient times, he was the strongest existence in this world since ancient times. Just by looking at it, Du Xiaofu felt that there was no way he could avoid it. Origin Void Slaying Sword, kill. He didn't dare to delay any longer. He immediately used his strongest move. A peerlessly sharp sword of light took shape and slashed down at the Blood Ancestor's head. Under the terrifying pressure emanating from the Blood Ancestor's body, Du Xiaofu mobilized all of his strength to use this attack. He didn't want to see Lu Jingyun fall at the Blood Ancestor's hands. Whether or not his attack worked, he wanted to take the risk. Martial Uncle Du, retreat. Around them, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others all shouted. Among them, a few directly moved to stop Du Xiaofu. The Blood Ancestor was a terrifying existence. Even Lu Jingyun, a third-stage meditative realm expert, couldn't deal with him. Du Xiaofu couldn't change anything. If the old man was displeased and turned to attack Du Xiaofu, perhaps he would only need to glare fiercely to kill him in an instant. Lu Yuxiao and the others couldn't just stand by and watch this happen. It was under such circumstances that the Blood Ancestor's ancient palm struck Lu Jingyun's body. Regardless of whether it was the invisible power between heaven and earth or the terrifying power that Lu Jingyun released, they were all easily destroyed by this palm. They were unable to affect the Blood Ancestor at all. Countless experts from the 33 heavens were stunned at this moment. Is this the power of the Tao Carrier realm? How terrifying! Third-level meditative forgetfulness realm cultivators can't even fight back. Lu Jingyun is currently the strongest person from the 3,000 sectors. Even he can't defeat the Blood Ancestor. What should we do next? Didn't the Yuqing Divine Emperor say that he had a way? Many people were unable to speak, but they kept thinking about these questions in their hearts. As the strongest person that had appeared in the 33 heavens of the 3,000 boundless worlds, Lu Jingyun's strength was well known by many. The scene before them made them feel despair. The Blood Ancestor's ferocious power was too strong. It was far beyond the ability of a meditative forgetfulness realm cultivator. In addition, many people also cast their eyes on Du Xiaofu. This time, they came to the Qian Su Jinghua heaven because of this young man's assurance. But now, they were all somewhat dumbfounded. Unlike the experts from the 33 heavens, the large number of beasts in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven all felt incomparably carefree. Cuckoo. These people are simply too presumptuous and arrogant. They dare to come to our Qian Su Jinghua heaven and behave atrociously. Could it be that they really think Senior Blood Ancestor won't do anything? Now they've tasted the consequences. Since they have the guts to kill their way into this world, they must be mentally prepared to die. Those from the outside world who came to the Qian Su Jinghua heaven must not be let off easily, especially those in the meditative forgetfulness realm. They must all be killed. Senior Blood Ancestor's divine power is present in the world. He must be able to kill all enemies. Under his leadership, our Qian Su Jinghua heaven will eventually become the head of all the creatures in the 33 heavens. Once the Devil Clan walks out of the 18 levels of hell, no one will be able to stop our slaughter. Seeing the Blood Ancestor take action, the beasts who were previously slaughtered one-sidedly rekindled the hope of victory in their hearts. Each and every one of them became excited. They seemed to have already seen the result of the handsome young human opposite the Blood Ancestor, dying tragically in the next moment. Everyone, including the experts from the 33 heavens, stared closely at the field. They wanted to see the final result. However, the development of the matter seemed to have deviated somewhat from the wishes of many beasts. The following scene caused countless people to open their mouths in astonishment. The moment the Blood Ancestor's palm touched Lu Jingyun's body, a dazzling golden light suddenly surged out from his body. It was like 10,000 rays of heavenly light, like a scorching sun in the sky, blazing the heavens and scorching the earth. Lu Jingyun's entire body was wrapped in this kind of radiance, making him look like a blazing sun. A terrifyingly high temperature surged out of him, burning everything. All the power of laws and orders in the surrounding void, as well as the formless origin of the Great Path, were all burned to nothing. Not only that, even the strange path carried by the Blood Ancestor's palm was directly burned through. In the eyes of Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, and the other top experts, the power of the Great Path produced by the Blood Ancestor's body was burned to nothing like a clump of withered grass, leaving only charred traces. The Blood Ancestor's ferocious face was now incomparably shocked. He could not help but let out a soft cry of surprise. It was also under his gaze that the body of the young man in front of him rapidly melted under this terrifying power. As if it had turned into a wisp of green smoke, it disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! Not far away, out of thin air, Lu Jingyun's figure appeared out of thin air. He stood in the void unscathed, without the slightest injury. This, How is this possible? Could it be that this person has a supreme treasure on him? He was actually able to escape from the blood ancestor's hands. Inconceivable. I really don't know how he did it. Whether it was the experts of the 33 heavens or the many beasts of the Qiansu Jinghua heaven, at this moment, all of them were indescribably astonished. No one knew the truth, nor did they know how Lu Jingyun had managed to do this. In the 33 heavens, aside from the unknown ancient era experts, who else could possibly have the ability to escape from the blood ancestor's attack? Fundamentally speaking, this was something that was completely impossible. Could it be that senior brother left something behind? Seeing that Lu Jingyun had escaped from the blood ancestor's attack, Du Xiaofu also let out a slight sigh of relief. His origin Void Slayer sword had been blocked by Lu Yuxiao, so it did not cause too much of a commotion. However, the pressure released by the blood ancestor was too strong. After condensing the sword, Du Xiaofu's entire body was on the verge of collapse. His aura was unceasingly fluctuating all over. Looks like there's a very powerful expert behind you. The Dao Carrier stage? Is he here? Why doesn't he just show himself? When the blood ancestor saw that Lu Jingyun had escaped, he wasn't surprised for long. In just a moment, his old face, which was filled with a gloomy aura, returned to its previous appearance and spoke softly. However, there was a slight throbbing in the depths of his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. This sentence was like a stone that raised 1,000 ripples, causing the entire crowd to instantly erupt into an uproar. The Dao Carrier stage. Is there really a Dao Carrier stage expert behind these youngsters? The powerhouses from the 33 heavens were seething with excitement. They were shocked by what they saw. It was only now that they learned from the blood ancestor that there really was a Dao Carrier stage expert behind Lu Jingyun and the others. Moreover, the method Lu Jingyun had just used to escape from the blood ancestor's attack meant that the Dao Carrier stage expert behind him was at his peak. Unlike the 33 heavens, where most of their experts had perished in the ancient era, it was unknown whether or not any of them had survived. The Dao Carrier stage. Doesn't that mean that even the blood ancestor would have a hard time stopping him if he appeared? A large number of beasts in the Qinshu Jinghua heaven began to tremble slightly. They were all deeply aware of the fact that the blood ancestor had yet to fully recover. During the countless years when In Xiong Wujiu heaven had been suppressed, his strength had been greatly damaged and he was no longer at his peak. If the Dao Carrier stage expert behind those youngsters appeared, would the blood ancestor be able to resist him? If that Dao Carrier stage expert appeared, what would the fate of the Qinshu Jinghua heaven be? You've guessed correctly. Lu Jingyun spoke. He looked at the blood ancestor and confirmed his guess. Lu Jingyun was no longer as nervous as before. Instead, he was much calmer. If you want to see him, I'm sure he won't disappoint you. He looked at the blood ancestor with burning eyes. He didn't dodge or show any fear. Hearing these words, the blood ancestor stared at Lu Jingyun for a long time with his bloodthirsty eyes. But in the end, he withdrew his gaze and looked at Du Xiaofu in the crowd. The primal chaos origin. This is the primal chaos origin of Exalted Celestial. I didn't expect you to have received his inheritance. The blood ancestor took a step forward and arrived 10 meters away from Du Xiaofu. He looked at him with sparkling eyes and kept clicking his tongue in amazement. In his eyes, Du Xiaofu's lower abdomen was like a ball of dazzling flame, releasing a fierce and scorching aura. The blood ancestor was no stranger to this aura. It was none other than a ball of primal chaos origin. Moreover, from the aura of this primal chaos origin, he could tell that it came from Exalted Celestial Daluo from ancient times. This old bastard's eyes are really sharp. Du Xiaofu was frozen in place and couldn't move at all. He could only gnash his teeth and curse in his heart. He had obtained the primal chaos origin left behind by Exalted Celestial Daluo in the divine martial world, but he had only refined a small part of it. The rest was still dormant in his body, but the blood ancestor had seen through it with a single glance. This result made Du Xiaofu extremely shocked. Didn't this mean that he had no secrets in front of this old bastard? Ha ha ha! The blood ancestor looked at Du Xiaofu and suddenly laughed sinisterly. The wrinkled skin on his skeleton-like old face trembled along with his laughter. After laughing for a while, the blood ancestor said, "Little guy, thank you for giving me such a big gift. With this primal chaos origin, this ancestor's recovery will be twice the result with half the effort. If this ancestor can refine the primal chaos origin of exalted celestial Daluo, it won't be long before this ancestor returns to the peak. At that time, in the 33 heavens, who can stop me? Ha ha ha." At the end of his words, he let out a series of sinister laughter. It was arrogant and overbearing, and the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven seemed to tremble under his laughter. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu felt his entire body tighten, as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his heart instantly sank to the bottom. Under the powerful pressure of the blood ancestor, Du Xiaofu couldn't speak, but his heart was as clear as a mirror. The blood ancestor's intention couldn't be more obvious. He wanted to snatch away his primal chaos origin. This old bastard, Du Xiaofu, could only curse in his heart. He couldn't do anything in front of a Dao carrier expert. Even if this Dao carrier expert's strength was greatly damaged, he was absolutely not someone he could shake in the slightest. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Things had come to this point, and Du Xiaofu didn't know what to do at all. "Since you're the one who delivered this gift to me, this ancestor won't be polite with you. I'll accept it with a smile." The blood ancestor's laughter suddenly stopped as he said this. When he finished speaking, he suddenly stretched out his hand, crossing the distance of 30 feet in front of him and arriving at Du Xiaofu's side. The withered hand was like an illusion, completely ignoring Du Xiaofu's body as it instantly reached into his divine watchtower and grabbed the primal chaos origin. Du Xiaofu stood where he was, unable to move an inch. He could only watch all of this happen with his own eyes. At this moment, he felt as if countless bolts of lightning were running through his body, and his entire body was completely numb. Not good. Seeing this scene, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, and the others were all stunned. They didn't know the specifics of Du Xiaofu's situation, but the information revealed by the blood ancestor made them think of many things. Needless to say, the secret of the divine martial world had been unearthed, and Uncle Master Du had obtained enormous benefits. But now, the blood ancestor was about to make a move and take away the primal chaos origin. If he succeeded, not only would Du Xiaofu's life be in great danger, but the blood ancestor would borrow the power of the primal chaos origin to return to his peak state. When that time comes, the demons wouldn't even need to march out of the 18 levels of hell. The 33 heavens would welcome a terrifying massacre and be plunged into endless bloodshed. Even if their father, Lu Xiaoyu, appeared, it would be very difficult to reverse this terrifying situation and stop the blood ancestor's slaughter. Therefore, Lu Jingyun didn't even think about it. He directly rushed out, his body once again surging with tens of thousands of rays of light, making him look like a god as he crashed into the blood ancestor. He wanted to stop the blood ancestor's actions. He couldn't let him take the primal chaos origin from Du Xiaofu's body. Chi-Chi. A terrifying power swept through the air like a ball of fire, melting everything, and instantly reached the blood ancestor's side. Aside from the blood ancestor, not many people could see what kind of power Lu Jingyun was using. Everyone could only feel that within that terrifying ball of light, it seemed to carry a power that could burn everything in the world. And it was this kind of power that caused the blood ancestor to invisibly produce terrifying energy fluctuations. A little child dares to be impudent in front of this ancestor. Faced with such a scene, the blood ancestor let out a cold snort. He turned his head to look at Lu Jingyun, who was charging straight at him. The hand that reached into Du Xiaofu's body didn't move. Instead, he gently raised his other arm and waved it gently. Rumble. A loud noise shook the sky. It was as if the entire world had been turned upside down. Endless roars erupted from the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. In the distance, some beasts whose cultivation hadn't reached the truth-severing stage exploded into clouds of blood and died an unnatural death. Puffed! At the same time, the light outside Lu Jingyun's body was instantly scattered. His body drew a long line through the air and shot straight into the distance. A long arrow of blood spurted out from his mouth and pierced through the void. Big brother Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others all cried out in alarm. One figure after another rushed out to catch Lu Jingyun. Humph! The blood ancestor let out another cold snort. After glancing at Lu Jingyun again, he continued to look at Du Xiaofu and said, "No one can stop this ancestor from recovering to his peak. This ball of primal chaos origin was delivered to me by you. This is truly the will of the heavens." When Heavenly Lord Absolute left all of this behind, he couldn't have imagined such an outcome. Kikik. His laughter was sinister and contained an indescribable sense of carefreeness. Seeing this ball of primal chaos origin today, the blood ancestor truly felt that this was the will of the heavens. It was like someone had delivered a pillow to him just when he was sleepy. Exalted Celestial Lord, exalted of the primordial era, was an existence that could create a macro world. The chaos essence that he had nurtured was definitely a supreme treasure that would have unimaginable benefits for a Tao carrier like him. With the help of this item, not to mention recovering to his peak, it was even possible for him to take another step forward compared to before he was suppressed. If the deceased Heavenly Lord Absolute of the ancient times knew what had happened today, he probably wouldn't be able to hold down the lid of his coffin. Thinking of this, the blood ancestor felt even more delighted. The laughter coming from his mouth became even more sinister and eerie, causing one's hair to stand on end. Old Ghost. Opposite the blood ancestor, Du Xiaofu clenched his teeth tightly. Although he couldn't speak, his face was incomparably ferocious. He wanted to struggle with all his might and break free from the terrifying shackles of his opponent. However, in the face of an existence who had his own path, his strength seemed so small and insignificant. Du Xiaofu's eyes were bloodshot. He desperately tried to mobilize his strength to resist, but it was all in vain. He could only watch helplessly as the blood ancestor's hand reached into his body and grabbed the ball of primal chaos origin. As the blood ancestor moved, the primal chaos origin was slowly extracted and was about to leave his body. Chapter 2899. Everyone held their breaths as they stared at Du Xiaofu and the blood ancestor. Some of the experts from the Yuqing Divine Kingdom were extremely anxious when they saw this situation. However, no one had the power to change anything. Under the natural pressure of the blood ancestor, those below the meditative realm couldn't even move. "Your Majesty, is there really no way to avoid this calamity?" Yu Qingyin, Yu Chengyao, Teng Yuanshan, Zhang Haoran, and the others felt as if their hearts were being squeezed. "Dad, boss." Du Xiaoyao and little Xingxing couldn't help but cry out. However, no one could do anything. Everything was under the blood ancestor's control. Even the great Tao of heaven and earth couldn't do anything. Hee hee hee. The blood ancestor continued to laugh sinisterly. His withered and wrinkled face was full of viciousness. At the same time, there was an unconcealable complacency, and his eyes shone brightly. The primal chaos origin was a treasure that could only be nurtured by an expert of the illusionary realm. It was extremely difficult to find, and to him, it was an absolute treasure. Once he obtained it and refined it, he would be able to return to his peak state. I searched high and low for it, only to find it by chance. Human brat, this ancestor has to properly thank you for your generous gift this time. Hee hee. The blood ancestor laughed continuously. At this moment, his arm suddenly pulled, and he was about to pull the primal chaos origin out of Du Xiaofu's body. As long as this action was completed, no one in the world could stop him from rising again. The blood ancestor's heart was filled with boundless joy, and his old body couldn't help but tremble with excitement. But all of a sudden, his pulling motion came to a halt, and his arm stopped there. Voila! Dazzling five-colored light flashed and formed a humanoid figure that stood between the blood ancestor and Du Xiaofu. The figure formed by the five-colored light grabbed the blood ancestor's arm with one hand and pressed the other hand against Du Xiaofu's lower abdomen. A large amount of multicolored light gushed out. The primal chaos origin was blocked by the multicolored light, and was pushed back into Du Xiaofu's body step by step. Who dares to obstruct this ancestor's matters? The blood ancestor's eyes narrowed as he stared at the five-colored figure before him. This figure came too suddenly, catching him completely off guard. Most importantly, this person seemed to have the power to penetrate the heavens and penetrate the earth, causing the primal chaos source to slowly leave his hand. There are some things that an old bird like you can't touch. After the blood ancestor finished speaking, the five-colored figure snorted coldly and unceremoniously retorted. With his arrival, Du Xiaofu felt an invisible, mysterious power flow from this figure into his body through the primal chaos source. The terrifying pressure that the blood patriarch had exerted on his body also disappeared with the influx of this power. He let out a sigh of relief and began to circulate the power in his body, wanting to resist the blood ancestor. An expert is coming. The divine emperor can be saved. That person looks so strong. It seems like he can even resist the blood ancestor. This is good. What a terrifying expert. I hope he can kill the blood ancestor in one fell swoop and help us complete this matter in the Qian Su heaven. Great. It seems that the person behind the Yu Qing divine emperor has appeared. This scene was seen by all the experts of the 33 heavens. Everyone was stunned at first, but then they were filled with boundless joy. They could all see that the five-colored figure was very strong. Under the terrifying pressure of the blood ancestor, he was able to resist it. Many people couldn't help but talk about whether or not this person was the expert behind the Yu Qing divine emperor. If it really was a Dao carrier expert, he would definitely be able to suppress the blood ancestor. At that time, their actions in the Qian Su heaven would no longer be hindered. All the beasts in this world would be eliminated, eliminating a huge threat to the beings of the 33 heavens. If this could be done, they would definitely be able to complete their mission. Contrary to the expressions of the beings of the 33 heavens, the countless races of the Qian Su heaven all had extremely solemn expressions. Who is that person? He actually appeared here at this time. What power? He can actually resist the blood ancestor from seizing the primal chaos source. Could he be like the blood ancestor, a Dao carrier expert from the primordial era? This is troublesome. If the blood ancestor is delayed, the Qian Su heaven will be in danger. I hope that person also suffered a great injury in the ancient era and hasn't fully recovered. He won't be a threat to the blood ancestor. Blood ancestor, you must hold on. The entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven will have to rely on your protection. Many beasts were extremely nervous. Many of them clenched their fists and sweat dripped down their foreheads. The scene before their eyes made them feel very nervous. A person who suddenly appeared and blocked the strongest support of their world. It was impossible for the beasts not to have their hearts in their throats. Without a doubt, the expert who could contend with the blood ancestor was definitely a Dao carrier expert. At this time, countless beasts only hoped that this person was in existence from the ancient era who had been severely injured in that terrifying demonic war and still hadn't fully recovered. If that wasn't the case, the blood ancestor who had been suppressed by Yuan Feng for countless years definitely wouldn't be a match for a Dao carrier expert. If that was the case, the beasts of the Qian Su heaven would be in imminent danger. With the enormous number and strength of the beings of the 33 heavens, they would definitely be able to sweep through this world and not leave a single beast behind. Countless eyes were fixed on the scene. No one dared to blink. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next and what the result would be. After the five-colored figure finished speaking, he still stood upright in the field. That space was directly isolated. Everyone could only see the terrifying scene inside, but no energy leaked out. What an arrogant junior. Do you think you can stop this ancestor's good deed? Facing the five-colored figure, the blood ancestor coldly snorted. His eyes were as gloomy as water. He said, I didn't expect that after so many years, a young man like you would appear. Truly incredible. Presumably, you came from the so-called 3,000 boundless worlds. But no matter how strong you are, you still can't stop this ancestor. From the aura of the five-colored figure, the blood ancestor could clearly determine that this person wasn't an ancient era expert. This aura was very unfamiliar to him. It was very likely that this person came from the 3,000 boundless worlds. Perhaps this person was the one who set up the trap on the youth named Lu Jingyun. The blood ancestor didn't dare to be careless when such a carrying the great path expert appeared. His old face instantly became ferocious. The hand holding the origin of chaos in Du Xiaofu's body didn't move. His other hand abruptly raised and fiercely slapped at the five-colored figure. "Get out of my way!" The blood ancestor shouted. His terrifying power boiled and spread out. Even though the area around them was isolated, it still caused a terrible vibration in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. The bone-like palms struck out and fiercely pressed at the five-colored figure. "Your era has already come to an end. In today's world, it's not your turn to be violent." Facing the palm of the blood ancestor, the five-colored figure said indifferently. A bright light burst out and instantly condensed into a clear figure. It was the appearance of a young man. This man was dressed in cyan clothes and had a handsome face. He looked to be only in his 30s. But when he appeared, Du Xiaofu, who was opposite the blood ancestor, couldn't help but look pleasantly surprised. "Senior brother." Du Xiaofu opened his mouth and was extremely happy. How could he not know this person? Who else could it be but his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu? At this moment, Du Xiaofu simply had a feeling of walking into heaven from hell. He really made the right bet. He was determined to take people into the Qian Su Jinghua heaven and get rid of the huge disaster of the 33 heavens. All his confidence was based on this senior brother of his. When the blood ancestor attacked before, he really tasted despair. But now that his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu appeared, the whole situation was reversed in an instant. He believed that with his senior brother's cultivation, dealing with a greatly weakened blood ancestor would certainly be a piece of cake. Bang! While Du Xiaofu was thinking, he saw that his senior brother had already withdrawn his palm from his lower abdomen and brazenly faced the attack of the blood ancestor. With a muffled sound, the two palms suddenly collided. Between Lu Xiaoyu and the blood ancestor, a terrible power of the great path shot out. Clusters of mysterious patterns surged endlessly and were incomparably bright. All the experts in the surroundings were instantly unable to continue watching. They all involuntarily closed their eyes tightly, and this was not caused by the dazzling light shining on them. It was only because the patterns of the great path between Lu Xiaoyu and the blood ancestor were too deep and terrible to be observed. Even Du Xiaofu, who was close in front of them, had his six senses closed in an instant. It was difficult for him to feel anything. The power of his primordial spirit was also sealed. At this moment, everyone could only feel that they were still alive. They were completely unaware of anything else. Is this the power of the carrier realm? It's too terrible. Those are their own patterns of the great path. With our cultivation, we simply can't pry into them. An expert who has walked his own path, when attacking with all his strength, is actually so terrible. I hope the blood ancestor can win. Otherwise, the Qian Su Jinghua heaven will really be finished. Countless people in the surroundings could not help but think like this. Whether it was the experts from the 33 heavens or the large number of beasts in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, they were all shocked. The carrier realm could only be seen in the ancient era. In that era, they had displayed boundless magnificence, and now they were able to see such a scene again. But the result made countless people even more flustered. This realm was too powerful. It was the ultimate realm that all postnatal creatures could reach. Whether it was the blood ancestor or that azure-robed man, they were all so. Everyone was in a panic and silently praying. The beings of the 33 heavens hoped that the blood ancestor would be defeated. At that time, he would be able to sweep through the Qian Su Jinghua heaven. The beasts of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, on the other hand, hoped that the blood ancestor would be able to resist and change the current situation. Time passed slowly. No one knew how long it had been. It seemed to be only an instant, but it also seemed to be 10,000 years. When everyone felt that terrible power dissipate, they could not wait to open their eyes and look at the field. They wanted to know the result as soon as possible. When everyone saw the situation clearly, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and froze on the spot. The surroundings fell into silence. It became so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. No one opened their mouth to speak. They were all shocked by what they saw. In midair, the purple-robed young man Du Xiaofu had already escaped from the blood ancestor's palm and regained his freedom. In front of him, the azure-robed man's robe fluttered in the wind. His posture was leisurely, indescribably indifferent and unrestrained. However, in his hand, he was holding a huge blood-red wing. Drops of bright red blood slowly dripped down from the wound on the wing. When they fell into the void, they turned into clusters of raging flames and directly burned the space into chaos. This scene was extremely frightening. The blood-dripping wing released a terrible scarlet, ruthless aura. It was still struggling, as if it wanted to break free from the azure-robed man's palm and fly away. However, under the suppression of the azure-robed man, the wing could not escape no matter how hard it tried. It was tightly bound. Between the two, one was calm and leisurely, the other was murderous and ruthless. They formed a sharp contrast, causing countless onlookers to be incomparably shocked. Gulp, gulp. It was unknown who was the first to swallow a mouthful of saliva, but it was clearly audible in the quiet field. Then, someone else spoke in an extremely low voice. That blood-red wing. Does it belong to the blood ancestor? This sentence seemed to be a question, but no one answered him. If it weren't for the blood ancestor's ferocious might, there would definitely be people who would roll their eyes at this moment and call him a fool. Who else could that wing belong to but the blood ancestor? Those drops of blood that scorched the void into chaos clearly demonstrated just how terrifying their master was. Just who in the 33 heavens had such power and influence? Therefore, the result of the battle just now did not need to be said at all. It was obvious. The surroundings fell silent again for a while, and then a huge commotion broke out. It was as if a nest had exploded. The blood ancestor is injured. The blood ancestor's wing was broken. This is too terrifying. How can that young man be so terrifying? What terrifying strength! He can actually injure the blood ancestor. That's the Tao carrier realm. Who the hell is he? Why does he have such a terrifying cultivation? Countless people couldn't help but start to clamor. However, they all suppressed their emotions and didn't speak loudly for fear of incurring the dissatisfaction of that powerhouse. Everyone was incomparably shocked. The blood ancestor's ferocious might had been established since the ancient times, but it had continued to this era. The moment he appeared in Inxiong Wuhu Heaven's burial space mountain, the nerves of the entire 33 heavens had been tense. One could only imagine how terrifying this person was. However, at this moment, one of his wings was broken, and the green-robed man was casually holding it in his hand as if he didn't care at all. It wasn't hard to imagine that this person was even more terrifying than the blood ancestor. This is great. The blood ancestor has been defeated. There's hope to clear out the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven. Without the huge threat of the blood ancestor, these beasts who are allied with the demon race should all be killed. The Yu Qing Divine Emperor didn't lie. An expert really did come and suppress the blood ancestor. The experts from the other worlds of the 33 heavens were all so excited that they couldn't help but start to shout. They knew that the biggest threat on this trip was the blood ancestor. As long as someone could suppress him, these beasts of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven would be nothing to worry about. Next, the green-robed man wouldn't even need to attack again. With just these people, they would be able to sweep through the Qian Su Jinghua heaven and remove the threat that this world might bring in the future. Everyone was indescribably excited as they saw great hope. However, in contrast to these experts, the hearts of the many beasts of the Qian Su Jinghua heaven were all like dead ashes. That green-robed man is too strong. He's another Tao vessel expert. He's very likely at his peak. His strength is at its peak, and he can suppress the blood ancestor. What should we do now? The Qian Su Jinghua heaven is finished. A wave of mournful cries came from the beasts. Everyone had lost their previous momentum. They couldn't help but feel dispirited. The strongest pillar of this world had been beaten back and his wings had been broken with a single move. That green-robed man was really too terrifying. Just a glance from him caused countless beasts to involuntarily take a few steps back in panic. Where's the blood ancestor? Suddenly, a weak voice rang out, entering everyone's ears. Only now did they think of this question. Immediately, everyone scattered their gazes, looking for the whereabouts of the blood ancestor. Perhaps it was in response to everyone's search, but in a distant mountain range, the sound of violent tumbling could be heard. Ah! A piercing roar mixed with a sharp phoenix cry came out. It seemed to want to pierce through people's souls, dazzling them. Huff, huff. Then, a boundless blood-colored phoenix soared into the sky, shook off the rocks on its body, and rushed over. This blood-colored phoenix only had one intact wing left. On the other side, there was only a hideous cut with blood flowing out. And this was the true form of the blood ancestor's hell-blood phoenix. His eyes burned with hatred as he stared at Lu Xiaoyu, killing intent shooting out. Heh, you old bird, do you still want to continue? Facing the blood ancestor's gaze, Lu Xiaoyu smiled softly, looking completely unmoved. A burst of light shot out from his palm and wrapped around the broken wing in his hand. It instantly burned, releasing crackling sounds. In the blink of an eye, the huge broken wing was reduced to ashes. This is simply a waste of God's gift. What a pity. Behind Lu Xiaoyu, Du Xiaofu kept smacking his lips as he looked at the broken wing that had been burned into nothingness. What a pity. Chapter 2900. Translator. H2DH2 Mr. in Du Xiaofu's eyes. The flesh and blood of a Tao-bearing stage hell-blood phoenix must contain an unimaginable amount of energy. The broken wing in Lu Xiaoyu's hand was so huge that it could definitely be roasted, stewed, or steamed. He had never tasted the flesh of a Tao-bearing stage powerhouse before. When he thought of this, Du Xiaofu felt extremely vexed. He secretly blamed himself for not asking senior brother Lu Xiaoyu for the broken wing earlier. However, when he saw the blood ancestor's broken wing turn to ashes and dissipate into the void, Du Xiaofu could do nothing but sigh in pity. I hope senior brother can kill the blood ancestor. When the time comes, I must remind him to leave behind his flesh and blood. Du Xiaofu immediately stopped thinking about it and made this decision in his heart. Then, he turned his gaze to the battlefield and looked at Lu Xiaoyu and the blood ancestor. A new round of confrontation seemed to have occurred between the two of them. Human, how dare you injure this ancestor? No matter who you are or what kind of background you have, you will pay the price for this. The blood ancestor howled fiercely, his eyes burning with endless hatred. His phoenix eyes were scarlet and filled with a murderous and ruthless aura, as if he wanted to burn the world to ashes. The injury he had suffered just now was too great. That young man had actually broken his wing. As the blood ancestor, who had been famous since ancient times, how could he endure such great humiliation? Hatred instantly rushed to his head. At this moment, the blood ancestor only wanted to kill the young man as soon as possible. He had never thought that the young man's strength was far above his. Is that so? If an old bird like you wants to attack, I don't mind killing you right here. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes narrowed as he stared at the blood ancestor. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his hand. There was nothing in his palm, and he slashed down like he was holding a knife. This scene was extremely strange. There was clearly nothing in Lu Xiaoyu's hand, but it caused the entire space to suddenly stop as if it had frozen. As his arm fell, a long blade slowly appeared in his hand. The blood-gold light on the blade was as dazzling as the sun as it slashed towards the blood ancestor. Qila. At this moment, the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven seems to have been divided into two. Chaotic energy spreads in all directions. Countless spectators felt their bodies tighten when they saw this saber strike. They were firmly rooted to the spot. Dozens of meditative forgetfulness powerhouses had come from the 33 heavens, but at this time, none of them could move at all. The power of the saber was clearly not directed at the crowd, but it carried a power that could suppress everything, causing one's heart to turn cold. It's a massacre. Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed as he looked at the arena. How could he not recognize the saber in senior brother Lu Xiaoyu's hand? Years ago, when he, Chu Daoju, Ling Feng, Long San, and more than 200 others were trapped in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, It was Yu Taiyin who arrived with this saber and stunned the demonic dragon ancestor, allowing everyone to escape unscathed. And when he chased Dongli Chihuang and Shen Yin into the first layer of the 18 layers of hell and was almost killed by Jiangxin, it was this very same saber that appeared first. It was also from then on that Du Xiaofu knew that the blood ancestor belonged to Lu Xiaoyu. The life-bound weapon of a Dao-carrying powerhouse was naturally powerful to an unfathomable degree. Father even took out the blood ancestor. It looks like he's determined to kill him. In the crowd, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, and the other 11 children of Lu Xiaoyu all silently said this. Others might not know, but the 11 of them knew very well how terrifying the blood ancestor was, especially when it was in their father's hands. It could explode with the blood ancestor's strongest power. Even a Dao-carrying powerhouse at his peak would have to be careful when dealing with such a blow, let alone a blood ancestor who had yet to recover from his old injuries. That person is too strong. Will the blood ancestor be able to withstand it this time? For the many beastmen in the Qian Su Jinghua heaven, at this moment, almost all of them had lost faith in the blood ancestor. They could see the enormous gap between the two of them, but after all, they hadn't reached the final moment yet. Many of them still harbored extravagant hopes in their hearts. After all, the fate of the entire Qian Su Jinghua heaven was tied to the blood ancestor. Across from Lu Xiaoyu, the blood ancestor saw this terrifying scene and his heart suddenly stopped. It was as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over him. His ferocious and ruthless aura immediately dissipated, and he regained some of his senses. Too strong. Run. Lu Xiaoyu's strength was too great. The blood ancestor was incomparably fearful. This saber strike from high up in the sky made him feel extremely threatened. Without thinking, the blood ancestor retreated violently. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from where he was. He wanted to escape. The blood ancestor's movement didn't cause any fluctuations in the void. As an expert who had walked his own path, he could ignore the rules and order of this world as if they were nothing. However, Lu Xiaoyu just snorted and said, "You want to escape? You have to leave something behind." As soon as he finished speaking, a muffled poof was heard. A cluster of blood appeared where the blood ancestor fell and splashed into the void. At the same time, a mournful scream was heard. Countless experts present felt their scalps tingle. However, everything soon calmed down. They didn't see the blood ancestor's hell-blood phoenix body appear from the void. The place where the scream came from was completely silent. Senior brother's strength is really terrifying. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but feel speechless and murmured in his heart. The powerful blood ancestor was injured repeatedly by senior brother Lu Xiaoyu. How could this not be shocking? Swish! Lu Xiaoyu turned his wrist and the blood ancestor disappeared. Senior brother, what happened to the blood ancestor? Du Xiaofu hurried forward and asked. He escaped. Lu Xiaoyu smiled at Du Xiaofu. He escaped at the risk of being seriously injured by me. He escaped into the 18 layers of hell. I'm afraid he's gone to seek the demon ancestor's protection. He escaped. Du Xiaofu felt that it was a pity. This was a very good opportunity to kill the blood ancestor. Even senior brother Lu Xiaoyu hadn't been able to suppress the blood ancestor. It would be very difficult for anyone else in this world to subdue him. That mongrel old bird had entered the 18 layers of hell. If he met up with Jiangxin, it would be a huge problem in the future. If he escaped, then so be it. There'll always be a way to deal with him. Lu Xiaoyu comforted Du Xiaofu when he saw the expression on his face. With the disappearance of the blood ancestor, all of the pressure in the air also dissipated. Lu Xiaoyu withdrew all of his power, so no one had to endure the immense pressure of a Dao bridge expert. At that moment, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, Lu Ji, Lu Feng, Lu Yin, Lu Xiang, Lu Qiao, Lu Rou, Lu Lu, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others all walked up to Lu Xiaoyu's side. Father, uncle. The dozen or so people bowed at the same time and called out to Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu nodded and looked at his children and nephews with a smile. Then, his gaze suddenly turned and stared at a young girl on the other side. This young girl was little Xingxing. Little sister, Quickly come and greet Uncle. Long K and Long Su immediately pulled little Xingxing over and brought her to Lu Xiaoyu's side. Little Xingxing greets Uncle. Little Xingxing had known about Lu Xiaoyu for a long time and was well aware of his relationship with her father, the dragon god. Not bad, little girl. You've already grown so big. Lu Xiaoyu stroked little Xingxing's hair. His eyes were filled with doting love, but at the same time, there was also a bit of heartache. Little Xingxing was born and grew up in the divine martial world. As her uncle, this was the first time he saw her face to face. This little girl could have had an unimaginable background and foundation. At a young age, she could have broken through realms that countless people could not cross in their entire lives. But for some reason, she was arranged to stay in the divine martial world and suffered a lot. Uncle, where are my father and mother? Didn't they come? Little Xingxing looked at the azure-clothed man in front of her with sparkling eyes and asked hopefully. As she spoke, her eyes were constantly scanning the void, as if she wanted to find out the situation in the dark and see if her father and mother had come. You'll be able to see them very soon. They've missed you very much all these years. Lu Xiaoyu was still stroking little Xingxing's head and said warmly, Uncle promises you here that it won't be long before your family can be reunited. Yes. Little Xingxing nodded fiercely, sparkling tears flashing in her eyes. The blood ancestor has already fled. The countless beasts in the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven are no longer a concern. Let's go all out today and get rid of everything here. Just as everyone was talking, a powerhouse in the distance said loudly. His voice traveled extremely far. That's right. Without the protection of the ancient powerhouse, the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven is simply unable to withstand a single blow. Soon, someone echoed with endless killing intent. Kill all the beasts. We can't allow them to become a disaster in the future war. There were also powerhouses who shouted, their voices echoing throughout the 9 heavens. Hearing these words, countless experts were in an uproar again. The beings from the 33 heavens all raised the swords in their hands and continued to attack the beasts of the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven. Kill. Get rid of the disaster and clear the universe. Kill. Everyone howled excitedly, shouting loudly. Before these people entered this world, they were most worried about the existence of the blood ancestor. Now that the blood ancestor has been scared away by Lu Xiaoyu, they no longer had any scruples about the following slaughter. After losing the support of the blood ancestor, the beasts of the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven could only be reduced to objects of slaughter. They could not change anything. The only thing they had to face was death. Run, run, run. In just an instant, a large number of beasts had the idea of running away. Everyone had lost their fighting spirit. Their hearts were filled with fear. They did not dare to have the slightest desire to continue fighting. With such a large number of outside powerhouses besieging this place, if they could not escape at the first moment, everyone would be buried here. Therefore, a huge scene appeared in the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven. Space was torn apart everywhere. One figure after another got into the space, trying to escape. However, how could the powerhouses from the other worlds of the 33 heavens let these people escape so easily? A large number of experts surged into the spatial rifts and slashed the beasts one after another. Let the resistance of this world end here. Looking at this scene, Lu Xiaoyu suddenly said softly. Beside him, Du Xiaofu's body tensed up when he heard these words. It seemed that senior brother was going to personally take action. Sure enough, Lu Xiaoyu's eyes were like blazing suns as they swept across everywhere. Following that, the beasts silently exploded, turning into clouds of blood mist. First, the Nirvana demon ancestor and a few other beasts of the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven. Then, a large number of high-level immortal powerhouses turned into a hazy blood mist that filled the void. Du Xiaofu could feel that the laws of this world were being rewritten invisibly by senior brother Lu Xiaoyu. A new order was being created to suppress and kill the beasts invisibly. This is too terrifying. Such a scene caused Du Xiaofu to shudder with fear and trepidation. The power of the carrying Tao was so strong. With just a glance, he could kill a large number of Qin, Su Jing Hua heaven, and immortal powerhouses. Needless to say, Those below the immortal realm were reduced to nothingness under Lu Xiaoyu's gaze. Not even a speck of them was left behind. In just a few breaths of time, the surrounding area was emptied out. A large number of beasts of the Qian, Su Jing Hua heaven were killed. Some weak fishes that escaped the net were not killed. They were still trying to escape, but they were all intercepted by the 33 heavens powerhouses, who swarmed them and chopped them into pieces. Lu Xiaoyu did not continue to attack. He only retracted his sharp gaze and stood quietly in place. The small number of beasts that escaped and those with insufficient cultivation were hunted down by the 33 heavens powerhouses. Without the top powerhouses, this world had no chance of turning the tables even if it wanted to. Dozens of Qian Su Jing Hua heavens powerhouses also gathered around Lu Xiaoyu, Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, and the others. They exchanged pleasantries with each other. Then, they heard Du Xiaofu say, "The threat of the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven has been eliminated. They can no longer raise any big waves. What we need to do now is to deal with the Devil Clan wholeheartedly." Yu Qing Divine Emperor was right. The Devil Clan is the biggest enemy of all living things. But compared to the Qian Su Jing Hua heaven, the Devil Clan is much, much stronger. They are very difficult to deal with. Most importantly, they are in the 18 levels of hell. Once they come out en masse, they will pose a terrible danger to the 33 heavens. At this moment, a powerhouse nodded and said so. Hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement. Everyone knew the terror of the Devil Clan. Moreover, due to certain restrictions, they wanted to gain the initiative by striking first and taking measures against the Devil Clan. However, they were greatly constrained and could not do so. Very few people knew what kind of existence the 18 levels of hell was. If they rashly entered, they also did not know what kind of situation they would face. The only thing they could do now was to wait and see. They could only wait for the Devil Clan to come out and the beings of the 33 heavens to fight passively. However, when that time really came, the situation would directly go out of control. With the Devil Ancestor of the Devil Clan recovering and the Blood Ancestor who had just escaped into the 18 levels of hell, the situation of the 33 heavens was very grim. I think we still need to make the first move to gain the upper hand and take the initiative to kill our way into the 18 levels of hell. Even if that place is a dragon's pool and a tiger's den, we still have to give it a try. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu said seriously in a deep voice. Hearing this, the surrounding powerhouses could not help but feel suffocated. Killing their way into the 18 levels of hell, this idea was indeed crazy enough. One must know that the 18 levels of hell were completely different from the Qian, Su Jing Hua heaven. Every level of the 18 levels of hell suppressed the Devil Ancestor's primordial spirit. In addition, there were also a large number of Devil Clan powerhouses. If a few more Tao-bearing experts appeared, then no matter how many beings of the 33 heavens went in, they would all die. No one would have a chance to walk out alive. Of course, if everything went smoothly, they could successfully destroy the Devil Clan's plan before the Devil Ancestor recovered. At that time, the situation would be completely new. Therefore, this could be regarded as a big gamble. If they succeeded, the Devil Clan would be eliminated and the world would be at peace. If they failed, all life would be lost and the great thousand worlds would fall into the hands of the Devil Clan. Senior brother, do you think this method is feasible? Seeing everyone hesitate, Du Xiaofu turned his head to look at senior brother Lu Xiaoyu and asked. As the strongest powerhouse known to the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great thousand worlds, Du Xiaofu wanted to hear his opinion. We can give it a try. Facing Du Xiaofu's gaze, Lu Xiaoyu frowned slightly and then nodded. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's heart surged with even stronger confidence. With the approval of his senior brother, he felt that killing their way into the 18 levels of hell might not be as bad as many people thought. At the very least, they did have a chance to give it a try. Just as Du Xiaofu was thinking in his heart, Lu Xiaoyu spoke again. However, this time, I can't accompany you. I have other things to do. Of course, I will always pay attention to all the movements in the 18 levels of hell. If you need me to take action, I will appear again. With senior brother's words, I am even more relieved. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and said, His senior brother had already made the corresponding arrangements for the Devil Clan, although Du Xiaofu didn't know the details. But now that the Devil Clan was in chaos, he would certainly begin to prepare more things and couldn't accompany them. I will send you to the 18 levels of hell, but this time, those below the immortal realm don't need to go. You must be careful. No matter what happens, you must first save your life. Lu Xiaoyu spoke again and warned Du Xiaofu. I understand. Du Xiaofu nodded. Of course, he understood what his senior brother meant. They didn't enter the 18 levels of hell to completely wipe out the Devil Clan. Under such circumstances, if those below the immortal realm entered the 18 levels of hell, it would be no different from sending them to their deaths. The Devil Clan was too powerful, and they couldn't make unnecessary sacrifices. It's good that you understand. Return to the Supreme Chong Rong Heaven first. Those from the other worlds, make your own preparations and gather at the Fiend God battlefield. When the time comes, I will send you there together. Lu Xiaoyu said,